So, Jason, finally overcame my resistance, and you mock me for this like every other show, to driving more than a few blocks. I did it.
Yeah. I don't know what the deal is. Texas Greg, that's like a normal weekday, but now it's a hassle to get you to drive more than 5 miles away from the house. So yeah.
Well, yesterday I made the long trek to the Apple store, and I was surprised to discover, Jason, that it was not uphill both ways.
Sure, you're in a truck, so it may be a steep incline.
Maybe I didn't have to put it in four-wheel drive, right? So there we go. But
Okay, good, good.
most journeys us old folks go on generally have more challenges than y'all youngins that are listening to this could ever understand.
Yeah.
But things went pretty smoothly. Shopped at the Apple store. This is one of the benefits of the Apple store being in the mall. I shopped at the store, got a demo we're going to talk about. I got Chick-fil-A for lunch. That was fantastic.
Hmm.
And then spent an outrageous amount of money on cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory because I had to bring some home to family. So, talk
Yeah,
about inflation. Cheesecake, expensive.
yeah. Which you have to. You have
Yeah.
to. Cheesecake Factory is a must.
Yeah, it was right there in the mall. Come on.
All right. I'm excited, Greg. I'm glad you told us that part. I'm hijacking the intro this week. Greg back
No.
on the iPad. Greg is back on the iPad. Finally, hit the music. We're going to talk about it this week.
All right, everybody. This is the Gadgets for Families Tech Show, the tech show where these two grandpas try and educate on tech, but mostly we end up sharing our opinions on stuff, tech,
Right.
retro cool things, philosophy, you name it. We have opinions because we're like every other grandpa, it's our opinions, and our opinions are always right. Now, they're really, really not, but we definitely have opinions on stuff. So I'm your host, Greg Cunningham.
And I'm your host, Jay Benjamin. And again, sorry about that, but I'm excited this week because, like I said, Greg is back on the iPad. So we're going to talk about what did he get? How was the trip to the Apple Store? All of that. I'm going to give some recommendations. And yeah, we're going to really dive into iPad again, which we always talk about the iPad on the show. But this week is going to be a little cooler because Greg and I both get to share our opinions on the new iPads and everything. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I am too. And it wasn't just my iPad yesterday. So we got to talk about how you manage some of this family stuff too. But the other thing, Jason, we're going to do today, and I don't mean to get all the energy and then take it down and go, oh my gosh, we're going to slug through another topic, but we are going to kind of slug through a second topic. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll want to watch the next video. If you're listening to the podcast, to the audio, this will be the post show. But we are going to at least start the conversation on something that's come up in the media of late, especially after Apple announced their Apple Intelligence, which is their version of AI. We're going to talk about, maybe it's just, let me summarize it this way. The question is tech bad, or is the way tech is used good or bad? Right. So
Right.
we are going to get philosophical. We are going to share opinions, and we are going to talk about not parenting parents, even though we might be parenting parents just a little bit in this one. But that's what we're going to cover for the second video this week, or in the post show, depending on how you're enjoying this content. Which, speaking of, we really do appreciate all you do to listen and share. We had somebody send us a note last week. It was their first time watching the podcast, and they immediately wanted to hit subscribe. It was really cool. So hit that subscribe button, whether it be in YouTube or in your podcast player, share with others. And then I really encourage you to watch the second video or stick around for the second half of the podcast, because I think this topic is super important. And I think,
Yeah.
Jason, you're always one that's bringing up that the media hype certain things, and then somebody has to figure out the common sense way to look at this stuff. And I think we're going to do a pretty good job of trying to have a balanced view of this particular topic. The topic, again, of whether it's the tech that's good or bad, or whether it's how it's used that's good or bad. So that's what we're going to cover today. Thanks for sticking around. But first, let's go completely off tech topic. So we're actually recording later in the day than we normally do. So if you start to see sweat streaming down my face, it's just kind of the nature of this house that I'm in. It's a swamp. They have a swamp cooler. So I live in Utah, right? So you can have a swamp cooler. If you turned on a swamp cooler in Houston, it would probably die in the first hour.
Right.
But it's only upstairs and it's not ducted. And so it goes down the stairs. But if I'm sitting back in the very back corner bedroom on the sun side of the house, which you can see in the window behind me, with the door closed, no air circulation. So there's nothing. There's not even any vents in this house because their heat is electric in the ceiling. So
Right.
if I start sweating like crazy, it's because we're recording in the afternoon. But we did this, and you said, no, this will be great because then I can go with my son to his practice. So I think you were somewhere pretty
Right.
cool today for practice, right?
Yeah, yeah. So they had Minute Maid at Minute Maid Park where the Astros play. They had a clinic for the Astros Little League, and they had well, I'm not sure if they did different age levels because it seemed like everyone there was around my son's age level. But it's really cool. They got to network with a Tuve and a lot of the all stars on the team, but a lot of the trainers and things like that for the Astros were out doing some instructions and stuff. So really cool experience. I'm so glad that my kids are part of this league and they get to experience stuff like that because I didn't mention it last week, but just real quick, a story. We got to go out and we got to. Originally, I thought it was going to be a flag holder uh, for the Father's Day game. But what we did was end up they gave us all nice blue shirts and we went out on the field and center field and we made one of the ribbons. You know, one of those ribbons that they use for to commemorate everything. That was pretty cool. And my daughter got to steal a base, so which I thought was probably the coolest Father's Day gift ever. She got to go out. They give them 15 seconds to run. They pick up the base and then they run back. Really cool. So I got some really good pictures and spent a lot of time that day down on the field. Which, if you know, most professional stadiums, whether it be football or baseball, they don't let anyone down on that field. They don't let anyone, which understandably so. You got professional athletes. You don't want people damaging and stuff. So got to spend more time down on that field than I've ever have, and I got to see my kids participate in some really cool events and really enjoyed it. So funny side story. We've been to plenty of games, and we always see the little kids running, do the base steal, and then they come back, and then they go to the back, and then the game continues on. Well, I always thought that it's cool. They'll give her a little T-shirt or whatever, or here's a award, or here's a little coupon for a hot dog or something like that. So we're walking. I'm like, okay, give her the base. Let's go back to our seats. And she handed her the base, and she's like, no, this is yours. So she handed my daughter back the base. So here's my 8-year-old carrying this big 20-pound base around the stadium.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. So yeah, so she's like, no, this is yours. She stole it. It's her base. That was really
That's
cool.
pretty
So
cool.
shout out to the Astros. Shout out to Sylvester Turner Park and Astros Little League. Thank you guys for everything you do for my family and allowing us to participate. So and also it's a really good league. My daughter's learned a lot. She's playing softball there and she's learned a ton. But she's going to be a pretty solid player, I think, when she gets older.
Cool. Yeah, they do a lot of that. I mean, talk about are things good or bad, or how is it used, good or bad? The same thing can be said for fame, right?
Right,
And so,
right.
quick story. I hadn't thought of this till you were telling this, but a couple weeks ago, my nephew got to go to a football camp. So, my mom passed away just over
Okay.
a year ago. I went to
Yeah.
the University of Utah. My sister went to the University of Utah. So we bleed red in this family, right? And
Hmm.
my mom was just a huge fan. So they had this University of Utah football team. Their quarterback was hurt most all of last year, but he decided to come back for another year. And they're in the Big 12 now, or the Big 10. I can never get them straight. I think it's the Big 10. So they're doing an hour-long football camp, and my sister looked into it, and it was just crazy expensive, right? Because those things have costs.
They do.
And
They
so
do.
she's like, we just
Paying
can't do it.
professionals to come out and instruct.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are pretty steep.
Yep. So my sister says, I'm sorry, we just can't do it. Okay. But she gets a call a little while later from the clinic organizers that said, hey, somebody called in and paid for your son to go to the clinic on behalf of your mother in your mother's honor.
Nice.
And so my sister calls and she's just in tears, right? I mean,
Right.
just sobbing and all that kind of stuff. And so he got to go to that a couple weeks ago, and she was fangirling out because she's such a nerd like I am when it comes to some of that kind of stuff. And but they had the quarterback there, and so he got to meet the quarterback. The players got to meet him. They knew he was there for whatever reason. And, but then I get a video of him. So he's a bigger kid, but it's a quarterback clinic basically is what it was. And so they're showing him how to pass, and Cam Rising, the quarterback, is there working with him, and he throws a ball and it just
Mm-hmm.
is horrible. And then you see Cam show him how to take 3 steps back to cock his arm and aim and throw. And you see my nephew
Right.
repeat it and just launch the ball, right? And then you see my nephew just with this
Nice.
huge surprise, and Cam Rising's over there with his knuckles out going, yeah, right. That's the good that
That
can
is really
come.
cool.
And a lot of people do that, right? It isn't just a few
Right.
organizations. A lot of them do it. In fact, I think probably the majority of folks in those kinds of positions are willing to do those kinds of things. But kudos to them for being willing
Yeah.
to step up and be good examples and show what good can be done with the fame and notoriety that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool.
So, Jason,
So,
anything? Yeah, go ahead.
well, we're going to jump into the current stuff this week. Yesterday, all of the beta 2s are out for all of the platforms. So iPad OS, iOS, Vision OS, everything gets a beta 2. And that means that the public betas are coming probably next week. They're coming pretty soon too. So, yeah, look out for those. If you're on the beta, which if you listen to your grandpas, you should be on the beta, especially on your main device on your daily driver. But if you did, go ahead and update to beta 2. It fixed some issues for me, which there weren't a lot. I'm only running the iPad OS beta. There weren't a lot of issues, but it did correct some things, and it took some things away too. So
Yeah,
check it out. Make sure you read those release notes and stay off of those betas on your main devices, please.
yeah. Don't do what Jason did. But
Yeah.
this the fact that they took stuff away in beta 2, right, illustrates the problem with the beta cycles. Period. In general, right,
Right.
is that you could load them on and your banking app could work fine on beta 1, and then they could change
Yep.
something in beta 2 and it's gone. And then beta 3
And
it might
break
be back again.
everything.
Right? So
Yeah.
you have to really know what you're doing. and
What you're
and
getting. Yeah. What you're getting
yeah,
yourself into.
I think when we talk about the device stuff today, then we can talk about which devices I'm putting what on, if I am. So the second thing I have here in current events is that I was listening to Upgrade, and then there's some rumors out there that I think it was Mark Gurman, that Apple has shifted their Vision Pro focus to a cheaper device. So they've moved away from trying to do a Vision Pro 2, and now my guess is it's going to be called Vision, right? Or something else. It won't be Vision Pro. Um, but it's a cheaper version, a $1,500 target, and they're hoping to release it by the end of 2025. So seems long way out there, but you got to remember how much cutting edge tech, how many cameras, screens, sensors, all that tech, right? That's sitting in the Vision right now, and there's got to be
Yeah.
decisions about what do we take out, right? There's just like that second screen that replicates your eyes on the outside. Is that going to come out? Well, Apple has said no, that's a
Yeah.
requirement. And so there's a lot of
Is
decisions that
it?
I'm guessing
Okay.
they're having, right? So they may have to change that tune. I mean, that could be $1,000 piece of tech, right? Between the
Right.
cameras
Could really
that
take
show
off
it
the
and the
price. Yeah.
screen. So anyway, I think that's probably a good thing. We're going to talk about the Vision Pro a little more later, so I'll leave it at that. But
Yeah.
$1,500 target, it's still expensive. It's still 5x a Quest, a Meta Quest. Oh, but
Right.
it's
But
still better than 3,500, which is what it is today.
yeah. And it puts it in my price range, right? I mean, $3,500. We were going to do it. We were both considering doing it, but we were both in completely different positions at that time when they announced it. So I don't expect though. I really don't expect a new device, right? I expect a stripped down version of the current Pro. I mean, of the
Yeah,
current Vision Pro. And like you said, it's going to be called Vision. Yeah, they're going to just take out some of the things that are unnecessary. Apple has their diagnostics and things like that, and they have their testers and stuff. And any feature that's not getting used, any sensor that seems redundant or unnecessary, it's coming out. and yeah, they're going to drop the price down to this current model and just call it the Vision. I don't think that they're designing a cheaper version. If anything, they're designing the next Vision Pro, the Vision Pro 2, just like the watch, right? Series 9 comes out, or Series 10 comes out. It's basically the current cheaper version or the entry level version is a different version of the previous of the Series 9. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just a stripped down version of the previous, like the iPad Air, for example, perfect example. That's basically the M2 iPad Pro, uh, with some new features, some new hardware and stuff in it, but it's basically a stripped down version of the previous generation of the iPad Pro with some hardware changes. So I
Right.
think that's what we're going to get. Again, 1,500. It puts it in my price range if it's worth it. So yeah, can't wait.
Well, we'll hold more on the Vision Pro. I won't tell you if it's in
Yeah,
my price range yet or not. I'll tell you in a minute.
yeah,
But the other thing I wanted to bring up is I've got something weird going on with my Ultra. So I sent Jason a
yeah.
screenshot, and I mean, I lost just a ton of battery life overnight last night. But yesterday, I had charged it to only 80% the night before. But yesterday, I got a notice about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon that it was down to 14% or 15, whatever it was, right? And then eventually I got the, hey, it's at 10% notice, which is super, super unusual. I hadn't been out for a bike ride with just my watch. If it's on cellular, it'll do that, right? If it's just running on cellular, not connected to the phone, then it'll do that. So I hard closed out all the apps, rebooted the watch, and it had dropped, what did I tell you, like another 40% or something
Yeah,
in just a few
yeah.
hours. And then it dropped over 40% overnight, which is extremely unusual. And I don't understand why it would be doing that. So I went and looked, and my apps hadn't hard closed. They hadn't really closed out. So I re-hard closed them, and this morning, and it's doing better today. I've had it off my wrist for the most part since, let's say, 8 or 9 o'clock this morning, a little bit of charge in between, and I'm at 70%. Right. And there was a little bit when I was on cellular. So not horrible. It definitely is not the ski slope going down, but I'm curious, you haven't had any issues?
No, no, none. And when you told me your wife was having issues too with her battery draining, I immediately thought, something's tracking you both. Life 360 or one of those family type apps that are constantly tracking your location because that can, if they get hung up, that can drain your battery too. But you saw some heavy usage on the health app. So maybe it's just something in the background that Apple's
Yeah.
changing for WatchOS, the beta 2 that's out for WatchOS that maybe they switched something on that it's thinking that your battery is it's included with that and it's stinging you. But I didn't have any issues. As a matter of fact, I'm 2 days in and I'm at 53%. So, and that's again, I don't work out as much as I should and all of that. It's I'm really just wearing it and I would respond to text messages and stuff. So that's normal for me. But yeah, no battery issues at all.
Yeah. I mean, I did go on. So I'm at 72%, let's say, since, early this morning, since I took it. But I did go on a
Hmm.
bike ride, and I had my music playing from the watch, because you know me and my music. And I had
Right.
work outdoors tracking the ride too. So I wouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, it's not unusual for me on a day when I go on a workout, regardless of whether I use cellular or not. It's not unusual for me to be down into the 30 or 40% by the end of the day. And maybe that's where I'll end up today. I mean, it is almost 3 o'clock, right? So maybe that final reset. But that's the pro tip. If you don't know how to do this for your Apple Watch, it's a little different to hard close the apps. You have to double click on the digital crown, and that'll pull up all your recently opened apps. You have to swipe and hit the X and close. Swipe, hit the X and close. Swipe, hit the X and close. Swipe, hit the X and close. But the pro tip, the key there is once you've done all of that, let it sit for 30 seconds. So I think what I did yesterday is I rebooted it too quick. I didn't let it sit
Right.
and really clear everything out of memory. So let it sit for
Yeah.
30 seconds, then hold down the crown and the side button until the Apple logo appears. and then let it go. So I think I'm okay today, but I'm going to keep my eye on it. But I wanted to throw in that as just my little quick tip. Hey, if you're having those issues, that's the first thing to try. Now, if I continue to see this, I'm going to unpair it and repair it back to the phone because that'll wipe it and start it all over. I don't want to do that, but we'll see how it goes today. Jason, you got a tip for us?
Yeah. So that was a good tip with the watch. But my tiny tip this week is a simple network attached storage solution, right? And I know I mentioned this before back maybe 10 or 15 episodes ago where we were talking about network attached storage. Me not using iCloud to store my photos and videos and stuff like that. I store them locally here in the house. So this is not that extreme. You don't have to go out and buy a $950 network attached storage and all of these hard drives and stuff like that. There's a much simpler solution if your router is capable of it. And that's using your router and using a spare hard drive or a flash drive or anything that you have laying around, any storage that you have laying around that you can connect to the USB port on your router. Now, again, some of the older routers won't allow it. I don't even believe the if you're using one from your ISP like Comcast or AT&T, if they'll allow it, they possibly do. I need to check. I didn't take a look at mine because I have my own solution here. But if you have a newer router, most of these routers have a USB port on the back. You probably noticed it when you were connecting your Ethernet cables or doing the initial setup, and you thought, well, what is this drive for? Well, what it does is it allows your router to act like a network attached storage device. So you plug in, let's say, a 1 terabyte hard drive to it. Now you can access that 1 terabyte hard drive from your wireless devices. It just shows up on your network uh, from your laptop, or it'll show up on your television as like an available storage or something like that. If your TV is attached to the network, and you can transfer files there. You can use the manufacturer app, your router manufacturer's app, to do things like backup pictures, backup videos, backup documents and stuff from your phone, your tablet, your laptop. And you can also use it for video streaming, like if you have movies or if you have family videos from the birthday party or whatever event you were at, and you store them on that drive connected to the router. Well, now instead of having to huddle around your phone to look at those things, or have the family, pass your tablet around for the family to view, you can just play it on the TV in the living room, and everyone can see and enjoy those videos. Different manufacturers, they're all configured different ways, but I encourage everyone to take a look at it. If you have an extra hard drive, that's a few gigs or a terabyte, and you have an old computer that you're going to pull the hard drive out of, buy one of those temporary storage or external enclosures from Amazon. They're like 5, 10, 15 bucks. Put that old hard drive in it, connect it to your router, and use that in your home as network attached storage to back up your pictures and your videos and everything. So, and it never hurts to have a redundancy, have an extra backup on your backup, right? Even if you're backing up to iCloud and you say, oh, that's enough for me. Yes, it's safe with Apple. You'll be able to access it. But, there's nothing wrong with backing it up and having those memories and stuff local. So that's my tip this week. Network attached storage using that USB port on your router.
Yeah, I just looked at my Euro. It's sitting behind me, and it does not have a USB port.
Okay. Yeah, they're not for everyone. Every model. There's some of the newer models that are coming out. So if you bought a router in the last few years, your system is different. It's a mesh system, so there's not really a centralized. Well, there's the one device that acts as the main router, but then the other
Right.
ones. So there may be something with that. It doesn't allow that, but definitely some of the older or some of the newer regular routers, they should have it. So just take a look. If not too, there's always inexpensive NAS solutions too, where you can buy a network attached storage device and just plug it into your router's Ethernet port and access it that way. So, but take a look. Network attached storage is on my list when we do the upgrade for the trailer, the tech upgrade for the trailer episode. You're gonna have some network attached storage on there.
All right. Should we have some fun?
Yeah. Let's dive into it. I've been looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm excited.
All right. Well, let me just recap what I ended up. I'll start with not me. Right, not my stuff, because I think that's where we're going to spend the bulk of our
Yeah.
time. So remember, I gave this pro grandpa tip. If you're buying something brand new for one, and everybody else has something like it, just make it look like they're all brand new. So
Yeah.
we bought. So I have 3 grandkids. They all have iPads, but the youngest iPad was only running iOS 12, and in fact, they didn't give me anything for it. They just recycled it, which was fine. Prefer to have them recycle it. I know Jason wanted me to keep it, but I'm not ready for that quite yet. So,
Yeah.
um,
You don't have the space for it.
yeah. So, but then I have, so that was I don't even know what gen it was, but then I have a 6th gen, and then I have, so that's a 9.7, and then I have I think it's a 9th gen or an 8th, the first one that went 10.2, right, with the normal one with the button. So those are what we have. So we took the oldest ones, which was the newest of the two, and moved it down to the youngest, just so we didn't have to shuffle down one and shuffle down a second. We just kind of skipped over the middle the middle grandson. Unfortunately, that's kind of what happens when you're the middle child sometimes, but his will be next to be replaced because it's not getting 18 in the fall, so it won't be too long before Disney or whatever stops supporting the OS for his stuff. It's probably got another year or two, but it works fine, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I bought the
So,
oldest yeah.
well, I was gonna say, so but like your tip for anyone who didn't listen last week, Greg found out a pretty cool way to make them all feel included,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
even though they were
So
getting old iPads,
right. So they don't know it. They have no clue. They can't read yet, so
right?
they can't go in and look and see. Essentially, what we did is we bought a 10th gen for the oldest, pink,
Mm-hmm.
256 because we wanted to be able to store stuff. Plus, your only other option is 64 on the 10th gens. It's 64 or 256, and 64. I just don't. I don't unless you're not storing anything on it, right? It's just gonna run out. That's just not good. So anyway,
Yeah.
256 on that, and we got her rainbow butterfly. She's into unicorns, so she got a rainbow butterfly case for it, and then a pink ESR pencil. So, and I think it's called
Yeah.
Pencil Pro. It will magnetically charge on those that can. So I think it would magnetically charge on the Air, for example. It won't on
Yes.
hers. It's USB-C to charge, but her case has butterfly wings on the back for the stand, and then there's a little holder for the case, right? And so yeah, we went in and I got it all restored, and they were at daycare for the day, and so I had told them they were all. This was actually the other pro tip: don't tell them that you've got a surprise for them, because I almost screwed this up really bad. So hers is all set up, and then I go to set up. I go to put the middle grandsons in the new case, and it was the wrong size case. It was too big.
Yeah.
So then I had to send it back, and so then I had to come up with the story of why his didn't look new. But the other way we made them, besides cases for all of them, the other thing we did to make them all look new is I changed the background picture on all of them
Yeah.
and the home screen picture. So the lock screen and home screen picture are now pictures of them and grandpa, since grandpa's the
Yeah.
tech guy, right? All
Yeah.
of them have that. So anyway, his case came today. I just got a screen protector put on it. I was telling Jason before we recorded, there's a couple of air bubbles in the middle that I hope work their way out. Otherwise, I'll have to go put something heavy on them and get them to compress down. So his came today, so he knows he's getting it. This was yesterday. We gave him to them all, which is why you don't tell them until you're ready, because I could have waited until today and done them all, but I'd already told them there was a surprise. So they do not forget. So,
They never
and then,
forget.
no. And then I took the oldest, and like I said, I redid it for the youngest, put a different background picture on it. And then he is so into Spidey and Friends. If you've not seen that cartoon on Disney Plus, it's
Mhm.
almost a kid version of Spider-Man and Miles Morales and Ghost Spider, and uh, he's so into that. So it's a red and blue, and it's got a web design on the background or on the back. And so anyway, so they all believe they have brand new iPads, even though there really was only one
Yeah.
new device. So
Yeah. Yeah. Smart move. Smart move.
yep. And then for my wife, so she's had, I can't remember what Gen Pro it is, but for quite some time, and the case is dead. We did find another case that she had just sitting in there for it, a nice one.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if it fits this new one. I don't think it will, but so she had a Pro, and we realized that it had a trade-in value, and I figured it was getting a little long in the tooth. Plus,
Right.
anything Pro is overkill for what she does with it now, and she didn't want to go down or up. She wanted the same size. So it's a little bit smaller because it's 10.2 instead of 11, because that was an 11-inch
Mhm.
Pro that she had. I think it was the first year they went to 11, but we got
Yeah.
330
It's that weird
bucks.
square one.
Yeah, we got
Yeah. Yeah.
$330 in trade-in value for it, which was a huge surprise.
Yeah. It was for me too. When you told me, I was like, wow, there must be something on there that that Apple can reuse
Needs.
for other devices,
Yeah.
right? Because that is pretty good trade-in value. So it worked out perfectly in her case.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean,
So
it was
which model
new
does
one
she
was
go with?
499, and she gets 330 on trade-in value.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then she got kind of a mint green case for it. So she got the yellow color. And then she got the
Yeah.
mint green case, but it's a translucent case on the back. So you combine the yellow with the mint green and it gives it this other green. She likes it. I wouldn't want it,
Yeah.
but she likes
Send
it.
me a picture of
So
that. Because I
I
remember
will.
you telling me she went with the yellow, and that was like my favorite of those iPads. I like the red one or the salmon color. Oh, I guess it's
Yeah.
pinkish. I like
Yeah.
that one too. But if I would have owned one, like if they had a Pro in that same yellow, I would definitely be
Yeah.
rocking that yellow one. So
It
good
it
choice.
looks really
Let's see a
good.
picture of her. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good.
With that
So
mint case and everything.
yeah.
So whenever you get a chance, send me a picture of it.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, but I
So
made
what
her
about
do
her? No pencil, no
no
accessories with other than the case.
Facebook, games, watching videos. I mean, that's pretty much her thing on it. So yeah, at least
Okay.
for now, no. I mean, it was a pretty straightforward. We had sold the Apple Pencil she had a long time ago. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But I actually this time made her do a bunch of the setup because I was trying to set up two or get another one set up and everything put in
Hmm.
cases, and I installed 3 screen protectors yesterday and one today. I still get anxious installing screen protectors. It's just that
Yeah.
carryover from our days at Stewart, right? When you're going to go hand an executive a giant iPad or a cell phone and say, "I'm sorry, there's a speck of dust under there. I can't get it out." Right? And
Yeah. And because we would have to just buy it over again, and there were
yeah,
no at the time we couldn't jump on Amazon and buy
yeah,
a pack of 10 for $12, right? We were spending,
yeah.
but they were like $30 and up for
Yep.
for a set. So
And back, and at least these are tempered glass, right? They're not the old zag, stretchy that
yes.
that kind of stuff. Even though I kind of like the feel of those, so yeah, those are all set up. So I've got a unicorn, a lime green and black, and a Spider-Man iPad sitting in the room across the hall from me,
Really
and they
cool.
were so excited. And my granddaughter, one of the reasons we got the pencil is because she had commandeered mine to color, and I put pigment on there, and her mom's going to help her do some other stuff. And I showed her how in free form she could just draw anything, and she
Right.
was just so excited. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was a good surprise for them, and it gets to. And when we showed the youngest that he could watch Spidey on his own,
Yeah.
Grandpa's the best, right? So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're the hero of the day. Okay. So that's cool. So no accessories for your wife. What about like cases or I mean not cases. I mean like carrying cases, backpacks,
no,
laptop bags or anything like that.
she doesn't
None
take
of
it
that.
anywhere. I mean, if she takes it to church, it's in a bag with all of the kids' stuff
Okay.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to have Cheerios and fruit snacks and all the stuff to
Yeah.
keep. We don't let the kids take their iPads to church. So they have these little analog drawing tablets that are black, and you write on them in a color, and then you press the trash button and it wipes it, and you go over again. But we just don't let them take that. So she's still got that and quiet books and stuff like that for the
Okay.
sacrament meeting of church. So that's about the only place she ever really takes it. Now we'll see, because once we get to St. George, my daughter works 7 on, 7 off. And for the 7 that
Hmm.
she's on, for probably 5 of those days, my wife will be going to their home to get them
Yeah.
from school, take them to their apartment. We'll be doing dinner over there. She'll be putting them to bed and waiting for my daughter to get home at 11 o'clock at night. So there may be a thing there where she decides, I'd like something, I'd like my own little bag where I can throw my, the iPad and something else
Yeah.
in it. So I have an idea of what I'd recommend for them. We'll talk about it. I need to send you a link to this thing that I found, but um, that I thought was pretty cool. But because they would have it for hers, I think too. And I thought it was pretty cool. So, but yeah, they're pretty straightforward, but everybody seems super happy with it. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a good move. I think everybody got updated, but no one feels left out. Yeah, no, good play, good grandpa tip that you gave, pro tip.
yeah,
So now it's what I was so excited for. Let's talk about Greg's iPad. So let me just say too before we get started, Greg and I we both were heavy iPad users, right?
mm,
We were power users, iPad. I kind of stayed with mine, even though I had to give up my, company laptop and stuff like that. And when I went on to other companies, my iPad was still my main. No one forced me to carry a laptop and stuff anymore. Wasn't on call anymore and all of that. iPad was my main thing. Well, Greg, your duties were your other companies still required you to be tethered to a laptop for most of the
yeah,
time, right?
yep,
And you just kind of slipped away a quick, backstory. Greg actually sold me my second gen iPad Pro, right? You remember that? It was one of the ones that I think you got it for or you bought it out of your pocket. It wasn't one that the company gave to you, but they gave you one. So you ended up with two of the same one. So you're like, well, I don't really need an iPad. And also, too, you were more focusing on laptops, on your laptop anyway. It just seemed like your love for the tablet just kind of drifted away, Not that I was disappointed because, your responsibilities required you to use an iPad, but, we both just professionally depended so much on our iPads. It was just always weird to see you just kind of like, I don't need the newest generation, and the next one come out. I don't really need the newest one. So to have you back on an iPad, I'm excited. Welcome back to the team. Welcome back to the family.
well, and so
Yeah.
just to recap, when I finally left Stewart, I didn't have a laptop. They're like, "Are you ready to turn it? We'll need you to turn in your laptop." I'm like, "I don't have one." And they're like, "What?"
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, I only have an iPad." What do you want me to do with my iPad? Keep it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
but the thing is, it was about a year and a half, maybe a little more before that. I had actually moved from managing all of the support functions and the outsourcers and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
into a program manager role. So I get into that program manager role and I'm only using an iPad. I have no laptop. I have no computer. I had a Windows environment I could remote into, which was fine.
Right.
But I went to
Yeah,
my
we had
boss
that.
and I said, hey, look, every year the company's been buying me an iPad because I needed it before the CEO and the CFO and all of the regional presidents and stuff got them because we were expected to support it, right? I mean, you know how that went. I said, I'm not in that role anymore, but I still get all of those phone calls. And he's like, well, we should probably tell them to go to the other folks. I'm like, I still get all of those phone calls. He went, yeah, just buy the new one every year. So,
Yeah.
when I moved to Utah, I didn't take a computer. I took an iPad. I had like 2 or 3 different keyboard cases for it. In fact, the first time I went to visit DocuSign, this is before I went to work for DocuSign, I showed up and they're like, where's your laptop? I'm like, it's right here. Like, how are you going to do all this
Yeah.
DocuSign stuff on your iPad? And I'm like, I'll just remote into this Windows environment. They went, no way, that's not going to work. And I mean, I was talking to director of engineering, engineers, product managers. And they're like, no. I'm like, no, yeah, really, it
Yeah.
will. I had that Logitech case that was super, super thick and heavy, right? And I loved it. So,
Yeah. It
but so
was bulky. Yeah.
that's where I was, right? And so when I got laid off, then I sold it because I didn't need it, and I had an older MacBook, but then I got into my consulting stuff and realized it just wasn't cutting it. So then I ended up buying a MacBook Pro. Then I went to work for DocuSign, and DocuSign gave me a choice of Windows or Mac, right? So, and now with the podcast stuff, we have the MacBook Pro. So that's why I haven't had one. I mean, I've always had my beloved Mini, right? I mean, it's
Right.
still But that's what I couldn't justify the iPad Pro and the MacBook at the same time. And so that's why I've had that mini, and I've gone through, how many minis I've gone through. And I still love the mini. It's still going to have a place, which we'll talk about here in a bit. So yeah, anyway, there's the backstory.
Yeah. So let's get into what you got, because we kind of joked before we started recording that you put a little thought into it. And I'm like, no, you put a lot of thought into it. We went back
Yeah.
and forth for the last several weeks about the choice that you should make. Not that I'm joking about it, because it wasn't an easy choice, right? There's, on one hand, you can pretty much afford to get whatever you want, right? You can walk into the store and say, give me this one with the nanotextured glass, and give me that, and walk out of the store and you'll be fine with it. But
Yeah.
at this point, we're kind of debating, like, well, do you really need all of that, right? Do you
Yeah.
really need to take the Lamborghini to the grocery store?
Yeah. I had the
And that's
budget,
kind of the case, right?
right? Like you did. You had the budget for what you ended up getting. I had the budget to
Yeah,
get pretty much any of the devices I would have considered. Now, it's not like I'm considering a Mac Pro, which is 10 grand, right? I mean,
right.
these iPads aren't cheap, but I had been budgeting for several months, if not longer, waiting for, the iPads to be released and then WWDC so we could see what was going to happen with them. So I don't want folks to think that I just could walk into the Apple store and plop down 10 grand and not even bat an eye. And that's part of the reason why this debate, right? The debate between the iPad Air
Hmm.
or the iPad Pro. Now, again, for 99% of people, you should do what I did for my wife and the grandkids. You buy the 10th
Yep.
gen and you call it good, right?
Yep.
It'll do everything you're going to want it to do. Now, for the other 0.9%, the iPad Air is going to do what you need it to do. If you want to be in that 0.01%, you either know you need it for something, or you go through the debate like I did.
Yeah. And we talked about this before with um, when after the Scary Fast event last year, and they announced all of the new MacBooks. And I said my biggest fear is that those folks that just want the latest and greatest, or we're going to have these younger kids that they have to keep up with all of their peers on social media. They're just going to say, "I want the what was it the M3 Pro and or the M3 Ultra. I want the fastest one. I want the best one." And they're going to be financing and
Yeah.
going putting themselves in debt just to get the latest and greatest. And that's absolutely not the case with the MacBook, and that's absolutely not the case with the iPad. So
Yeah.
no one should be getting the Pro unless they need the Pro and need those features and know what those features are, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And
you heard me go on a rant last week about what we didn't get
yeah,
with iPad OS,
after you spent
the
400
newer
extra
one,
bucks on the terabyte, right?
right?
I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So if you don't know what you're getting into, then you shouldn't even be saying Pro. You should be just
Yeah.
be saying iPad and then up from there. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for me, and I'll point this out. So my debate ended up coming down to the 13-inch Air versus the 13-inch Pro. But there was a debate after that we'll talk about, because I was even debating it Sunday night with Jason before I went to the
Right.
store yesterday. So, but what it came down to is when I scoped these things out, I wanted 512. I knew that because I want to be able to put everything
Yeah.
on it. And it's funny, Jason, I don't know how I get 100 gigs of music on my phone, because I
Hmm.
downloaded everything I thought I had downloaded. I must have older playlists also downloaded on my phone, because I downloaded all my music. This is a sidebar, but for those of you that have followed this, you know how I am about local music.
Right.
I downloaded my music and it was only taking up 14 gigs. I was like, what?
Really?
How is it 14
Something's
versus
missing.
100? And I went into the settings and realized that I didn't have download for lossless and stream for lossless. So then I went and
Okay.
deleted all of the music and re-downloaded all of
Re-download
the
it.
playlists. And so now it's up to
Right.
56, which is still a far cry from 100. But I think it must be a bunch of my older playlists that I just
Yeah.
don't
Some old
listen to anymore,
playlists.
which is fine. And I've got them all on my phone, so it's not like I need them over here. But anyway, so I
Yeah.
wanted the 512 because then I can download all of the movies in my library. I can pull things out of Prime and Disney, right? And have
Yes.
them downloaded because I love, you can see the T-Mobile, you can now see the T-Mobile router behind me, Jason. That's the T-Mobile device up there, the
Yeah.
white with the black screen, right? It's been
Yeah.
rock solid, but it's still cellular, right? It's not fiber connected into my house. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of driving and traveling and some of those kinds of things. So I just wanted the space. And
Yeah.
it's 256 I could probably get by with, but I'm a little bit future proofing here. So anyway, 512s of both, right? 512 of the 13 Air, 512 of the 13 Pro. There's a $400 price difference. Put aside Apple Care or Apple Likes. There's a
Yeah.
$400 price difference. And so my question to Jason was tandem OLED,
Yeah.
Face ID, ProMotion, the color gamut, so the better screen technology and all that kind of stuff. Is it worth the $400? And Jason's response was very quick. Yes.
Yeah.
Now at this point, it's
Definitely.
making sense. Not at
Yeah.
900, not at $1,000, but at
Yeah.
$400.
The
Yeah.
difference
Right.
was, yeah, just for the screen alone. And then you
Yeah.
get Face ID, which you mentioned, you don't realize how much you miss it until
Oh,
you're having to
it
tap
is
on the
so
button and
good.
stuff again.
And when I pay for
Right, right,
something,
right.
I don't have to reach up and hold the button like I do on my Mini, which is fine, right? But the
Yeah,
Touch ID and the power button is amazing tech, right? I mean, it's unreal that they can do that in that itty bitty thin power button. But
yeah,
yeah,
a little button.
it's incredible. So that's where the debate came down to. And so it's that plus, even though they didn't announce it this year, the hope of the future, right? So
Yeah,
the hope of the future is these iPads will probably last for 18 months because that's about the norm for iPad Pro, right? It gets refreshed about every 18 months. So we'll get one more WWDC in there. And then if they announce stuff that'll work on this one, or if they announce stuff that's going to work on the next gen, but not this one, I'm still going to get better trade in value from this Pro than I
yes.
would from the Air. So there is a little bit of wishful, hopeful thinking about that kind of stuff. And so that was the debate. And if you're on the fence about these, that's what you need to be thinking about, right? Is that $400, is it worth it for the extra tech? Now, I have a fatal flaw when it comes to technology and actually most anything I really care about. Like my bikes. We're going to have to talk about the
Yep.
bike I bought on a different show, but I have this thing about, is something good enough? Is that going to work for me? So it's a flaw.
Yeah.
I don't recommend everybody else do this. I was debating this on these bikes, and there was a bike that was about half as much as the one I ended up purchasing. But the comments in the reviews were, this is a great bike if it fits in your budget. And what my
Yeah.
brain hears when somebody says that is, but if you can afford more, there is something that is so much better, right? And so that was the other part of this was, am I going to get home with the 13-inch iPad Air? I'm going to stick movies on this because I'm going to watch a lot of movies on this. So remember, I don't
Yep.
have a 4K TV in the trailer. We don't have a TV in the bedroom in the trailer. So when I'm sitting there and the kids are trying to go to bed out where the TV is, I'm laying in my bed doing my stuff, right? YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And so I ended up deciding it's worth it. So I purchased the 512 Space Black 13-inch iPad Pro. I debated
Yep.
even in the store. So I walked in the store, and the first set of things on the left-hand side down the row I walked were the 11-inch iPad Pro and the 13-inch
Hmm.
iPad Pro. And I had this debate in my head. I had told Jason the night before, I don't know, maybe I just want the 11 because I've got this great 14-inch MacBook, gorgeous screen, all that kind of stuff. Maybe I just want something that's a little bit easier to hold. When you
Yeah.
look at the two
No,
side by side, the 11-inch looks small, doesn't look as small as the Mini because now
it looks
this thing
tiny.
feels like it's a toy or something in my hands, right?
Yeah, a big giant calculator.
Yeah. But I just looked at it and I tried typing on the keyboard, didn't like it because it's scrunched, and I know I'm going to use the keyboard a lot,
Right.
which we'll get to. So that actually made it super, super easy. I didn't didn't even hesitate between the 11 and the 13. That meant the 13. I still think it might be nice to be a little smaller, but it can't go to the 11 because that feels too small for some of the things that I want to do. And I've already been playing with multitasking and with Stage Manager. And this morning when I was doing my study, I had 3 windows going all at the same time, which on the 11 just wouldn't function the same. So I still debated on the size. And Jason's thing was, why would you go buy a pickup truck with 4 cylinders?
Right. You need a 4-wheel drive, but you're driving with the donut tires, the spare donut tires on them. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to pay the extra for this, because remember, we're talking about the better screen technology, the Face ID, a few other features that are available in the Pro. The screen is one of the main issues. So if you're talking about going back down to a smaller screen, don't go Pro. I
Yeah.
would say don't even go Air. Go ahead and go with the 10th gen iPad, right? If you want something
Yeah.
small and portable. But that's not what we were doing. That's not what you were doing. You
Yeah.
still wanted and still need a powerful device. And we'll talk about use cases here in a bit. But yeah, I just think that it was pointless to even go down that route of questioning yourself about the screen size.
Yeah.
No, it had to be the 13 inch. So you made the right choice.
Yeah, and that's why I said 99% of people should get the 10th gen. 0.09% or 0.9% should get the iPad Air, and 0.1% are insane enough or know they need the Pro. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you went with the iPad Pro. You went with the 13 inch 512. Let's talk about the accessories and stuff that you went with, because you already ordered accessories for the 13 inch.
Yep.
Which, going back, I know I'm going back in the conversation when we were talking about screen size again yesterday or the night before. I'm like, you already ordered accessories for the 13 inch.
Love Amazon when it has the words free returns, right? Because
Right.
that's what you do. So I had ordered an ESR keyboard. It was $120. It had amazing reviews. Everywhere I looked,
Yeah.
it was number 1 or number 2, depending on whether they took into account price.
And whether they took into account that there are only 3 options anyway now.
Yeah,
So
actually, there are way more now. There are a bunch more now.
Yeah.
So
they're rolling out.
Yeah.
They're rolling out.
Yep. So I had ordered that. I ordered the screen protector, which I still kept, right? That wasn't a problem. That was, I would just have to have gotten a different size. And I ordered ESR's magnetic mat. It's not in here. It's actually on my device at the moment. So it comes in this nice sleeve that you take it off and put it back in. So I'll talk about that here in a second. I had ordered that. I think those are really the only big things that I ordered for my iPad. The rest of it was the stuff that I ordered for the kids and for Karen, right? And so, but I'm in the store, and one of my concerns about the Apple keyboard was everybody was saying, hey, you tap the screen and the keyboard rocks. Well, so I'm in the store and I'm going tap, tap, tap. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guy that did the demo for me, and he's like, yeah, if you're tapping it that hard, you're tapping it wrong. And it just made me think of Steve Jobs saying, you're holding it wrong, right? So I can get this thing to rock the keyboard, but I would have to hit it pretty darn hard to get it to rock that keyboard. So I'm in there going, and then I'm looking, it's aluminum. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I don't know. So I didn't. I just got the iPad. I needed some AirTags, so I bought another 4-pack of AirTags. I mean, talk about underrated tech, right? They are just, and so I've already pulled one out and paired it. It took 30 seconds to pair it and dropped it in the bike, right? That's what I needed the first one for. Karen doesn't have one on her keys, so we want to put one on her keys. So, if she decides to get a bag to haul stuff back and forth. Anyway, there's plenty of use cases for the AirTags. So I got some of those, and I grabbed the pencil.
We're going to come back to the AirTags because you're saying it's underrated. There's a reason why.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that in the second half of the show.
Yeah, that is a great example. I didn't put that in our notes, but we should talk about that. So, and then I got the Pencil Pro. So this is the case. If you know the Pencil Pro, it comes in different boxes. So this is the one that I got. So I got the Pencil Pro. Yeah. And so I'm checking out, and I did 2 different transactions, one for mine and one for everybody else's, because the business is going to help with mine. But
Okay. Good.
so I do that second transaction and hadn't got the keyboard. I asked about the folios. The only folio they have, I mean, they have the black one. It looks normal. The denim one just looks like bleh. The white one looks super good. But everybody I asked said it gets dirty. It wipes down pretty good, but it gets
Yeah.
dirty. And then I remembered I'm going
Understood.
to live in an RV, and I just went,
Yeah.
it'll never stay clean. So I didn't go with that. I'll talk about what I ended up getting from a case standpoint. Anyway, I go through all of this stuff. I'll skip the middle part. I went and walked around the mall for a minute because I needed to wait because I had to go back to the store for an appointment. And after the appointment, I grabbed the Apple keyboard. So I've got the Space Black Apple Magic keyboard.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Used it on my lap. If I'm sitting on my lap and I've got, because your knees kind of normally angle down, at least mine do. So there's a
Mhm.
little bit of an angle, and if I don't have a hand on it, it's going to start to tip unless it's at 90 degrees, right? If you've got it brought out at any sort of an angle, it's going to lean back and tip a little bit, but that hasn't been a
Yeah.
problem. I was worried about that. I think the only way you solve that is you get a lap desk, right? I mean, that's probably the only way you
Yeah.
can solve that problem, and it still may not. So that was cool. I found out a way to turn off the whole suggestions bar, like when you're using the keyboard, the
Hmm.
quick type and all that kind of stuff. And I put in our notes yesterday, hopefully this won't come back to bite me. Yeah, it already did. So it doesn't, some of the stuff just doesn't work quite right if everything's turned off there. So yeah.
Okay.
So the ESR keyboard, it'll be here tomorrow. I'm probably not going to take it out of the box. I'm leaving tomorrow to go on a 10-day camping trip, but it'll be here at my in-laws' house. I don't
Yeah.
I don't even plan on taking it out of the box unless over that 10-day time I realize I don't like the Apple keyboard. I know it's 3 times as expensive, but considering that I think I'll bet 50% of my usage is going to be in the you with the keyboard. Right. I think I'll
Yeah.
probably be 50-50. So I don't plan on, I plan on just sending that back. So
Yeah. That ESR keyboard. You and I looked at tons of reviews on that when you were making the decision. You were sharing some with me. I don't like that case. I don't like having to put it in a case to attach it to something, right? We know MagSafe, not MagSafe, but magnetic devices or stands and stuff are coming soon. We're just kind of playing that waiting game now, but that was the only downside for me. Other
yeah,
than that, that ESR one was really a great keyboard.
the reason they
Good
do that
size
though,
trackpad and
the reason they do that is because they allow you to turn it to portrait mode, and they
right.
allow you to magnetize it a little higher for a higher viewing angle. So it's more flexible in that case that it
Yeah.
comes with. And one of my thoughts was, well, then I won't have to get a case, right? I'll just put a screen protector on the front, and then I won't need a separate folio case or any of those kinds of things. Do you remember back in the day when they made the folios that didn't have a back? That they just had the flap that magnetized to the back of the iPad and it just covered the front?
Right.
They don't
Yeah.
exist anymore. I looked and looked
Yeah.
and looked and looked. Everybody's gone to the two piece. Usually the back is translucent. And most of the cases now, and I hate this, have an extra quarter of an inch or whatever it is on the top part where you can lock your Apple
With the
Pencil into that.
pencil.
I
Right.
don't
Right.
know. It's not what I
You know.
want. So I had a hard time. I ended up, at least for now, the case that I've got ordered that's coming tomorrow is a $5 folio. And I just got
Okay.
black. And the only reason I got it is because I wanted something, if I wasn't in the keyboard outside, at the campground or like when I go to church or something like
Right.
that, I don't want to take it in the keyboard. The iPad's big enough as it is. I got a $5 one until I figure out what I want to do. So the screen protector. So I've got Alien, our friend Alien, right?
Mhm.
Those screen protectors. That's what I tried to get for everybody. Put it on, went on like a charm. And then that ESR magnetic screen protector, I mean, you can definitely tell the difference. So if you're debating between if you're going to a terabyte and you're going to debate between the matte
The
texture
nano
and not,
texture. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. This screen protector was like $30. It's magnet. They've got instructions on how to clean the magnets because it's going to accumulate crap, right? And then it's going to have a harder
Yeah.
time sticking. But it goes on top of my regular screen protector. And I can tell it's there, right? It does distort. the image, but I was watching Dune 2 yesterday on this, and I put the magnetic on half and non on the other. And yes, there
Mm-hmm.
is a difference, but it is not that dramatic. So it's not bad, but it definitely diffuses. Like I'm looking here and I can see the glare in the window back there. But when I look at it through the further my iPad, I can still see me. I can still see that window back there, but it's not, you know, blowing it out, right? Like
Right.
that light is back there right now. So, and I love the feel of drawing on it with the pencil,
Yeah.
right? And there's just a little hint of resistance and that you don't
Okay.
get on smooth glass or on tempered glass. So I'm a fan of this ESR magnetic matte keyboard. I've taken it on and off several times. Right now I'm just leaving it on. I can tell that the
Mm-hmm.
magnets are going to need to be clean because, you know, if I pull on it just right after I put it on, it'll start to slide or something.
Okay.
Um, but for $30 instead of 100, and then when you want to watch a movie and you're sitting inside in your bed, you just pop it off, throw it in the sleeve, and clarity.
Yeah.
Tandem OLED, good.
Yeah.
Black's black, very black, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the space in between the screen protector that's on the device and the ESR cover? Can you tell that there's a gap there, like the little space, between the two protectors?
I mean,
You know what I mean? Does it like move and flex when you're when you're drawing on it, or if you're writing something, almost like a rug on top of
almost like
on
seeing it
top of
in
a carpet or
3D
something?
or something like that.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
No, no, no. I mean, like you know how like a rug kind of bunches
oh yeah,
up
no, it
if
doesn't
it's on
move.
top of another. Okay, let's
Once
stay
you get it
still.
settled on there, it doesn't move. I mean, I would have to peel up the edge right now to get it to
Okay.
come off. So that is one thing. You got to be careful not to peel the edge of the regular screen protector. You want to make sure that you're peeling the edge of the magnetic one.
Yeah.
So I think if I wasn't using this in such a non-technology friendly environment like campgrounds and stuff, I think
Hmm.
I would be tempted to take and just use the magnetic one, right?
Okay.
I don't know that it's necessarily going to protect a whole lot against drops or stuff like that, but it definitely is
Yeah.
enough to
Probably
protect
not.
against getting dirt or something on it. So I think I'd be tempted to do that. But as is with two of them, it's just fine. And they say as long as it's 0.33 millimeters or less thick, and I think mine's
Hmm.
actually a little thicker than that, it'll work. And this is working just fine. So highly recommend it.
Right.
And
And
then
oh, go ahead.
the Pencil Pro, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot with it. I did some coloring, did some writing with it. I haven't. One of the things, and it might, one of the things I got to figure out is how I turn it on so that when you press and hold it, it's supposed to erase. As a matter of fact, let me test it right now. I haven't really tested that, but that's one of the things that I thought was super cool. Let me write on here. So I just wrote something and then you press and hold, but it's supposed to. Somebody had it set so like when you press and hold, he was automatically erasing. Now it could have been in the app, right? I mean, that could have been the
Yeah. What was he using to
yeah.
write that?
So that's not working in notes right now. So I've got to kind of look into that. But that's what I would like it to do is when I press and hold that it erases because I don't have a problem usually with double tap. I know a lot of people have had issues with inadvertently activating double tap and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff or having it not work, but I just haven't had those issues. So yeah. So good so
Okay.
far.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad. Like I said, welcome back to the team. I'm glad you're finally back on the pro, and we'll get to this when we get to the question section. So compare the models that you got, right? Everyone seems like they have exactly what they need. So as you have a section on here where you're going to talk about your impressions. Let's talk about your impressions on that 10th gen iPad because I think that's the iPad for like just like you said, 99% of the people
Yeah.
can get by with that iPad. What do you think about
One thing, real time follow up. I did just go in and there's a setting in the Apple Pencil settings that you go in and instead of squeezing to show the palette or the tool selector,
Mhm.
squeeze to erase, and then you go back to writing when you let it go, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. So
Okay, I didn't know you can change that. Well, I don't have an actual Apple Pencil,
yeah,
so that will eliminate that issue then if you can change that setting.
right. Yep. So he's on. So it's just in pencil settings. So perfect. So
Okay.
all right. So the 10th gen, I think it's a phenomenal device, right? It looks like
Yeah.
the original Pros. You know, the flat
Yeah.
edges, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It took my oldest granddaughter, she's 5. It took her 2 seconds to realize she didn't have a home button anymore, and we just said, "Hey, you just tap, wait, swipe, and put in your code and move on." The only thing I don't like about her case is that the button's deep enough in the
Yeah.
case that you can't use Touch ID. So it's always going to be passcode. So,
Right.
but easier for us to change the passcode if we need to lock her out than to remove her fingerprint. So, but I love that. I love that it got rid of the home button, all that kind of stuff. One of the reasons we didn't want to go like for the youngest grandson, he's only 2. We just didn't want him to have to try and teach him right to swipe up to activate an iPad. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I don't.
I
I don't
just
think that would be a huge deal though.
no,
But you're right. Just one
yeah,
one less thing to he'll get there eventually.
yep. So I mean, it's light, it's great when you put it. I mean, I love the thinness of all these devices.
Hmm.
I have big hands, and I always worry when I hold. Like I've had my iPad caseless for the last few days, and I hold it, and I
Yeah.
worry that I'm gonna bend it or break it.
Right.
And the bigger the
Right.
device, the more leverage you can get. So it's great. They're super thin. Put a screen protector on it. Put it in a case. Rock solid. It was a little laggy in setup. And on the youngest grandsons, the case had a built-in screen protector, and we had another one on it. I had to remove the one underneath it because it wasn't. It sounded like it was double pressing when you would enter, when you would tap on it, but it wasn't, and it was just confusing enough. I didn't want a 2-year-old to have some problems with that, so had to remove
Yeah.
the other screen protector. Um, it's solid. It was a little laggy setting it up. It felt like, and I think it was
Right. Right.
just, yeah, it felt like the indexing. So I did mine last. I did all of theirs first, right? But it felt
Yeah.
like the indexing was taking a long time. And even going into the settings app, I would search for a setting in settings, and it's like it hadn't indexed where everything was yet, even though you
Right.
would think in settings that shouldn't have been a problem. But the the screen is great. The size is great for them. I,
Yeah.
there's just no downside, which is again why I'm saying 99% of people should just go with that iPad.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So you're a pro. I'll let you go down your list here. I don't want to spoil anything, but you text me last night. I believe it was last night or the day before, and you had mentioned. I didn't ignore the text. I didn't respond back because I wanted to talk about it on the show. But you had said you're enjoying this way more than you thought you would,
Yeah,
right? So are things coming back to you? And I guess let's just dive into it. Let's talk about it. You said so. You started from scratch. Let's talk
yep,
about your whole experience then last
yeah.
night with the iPad, setting it up, from
I think
opening
the
it from the box. From
I think the ultimate question you're asking is, do I wish I could get rid of my MacBook? And the answer to that is absolutely. Right. I mean,
I was going to ask that later. Yeah,
yeah.
but you're right.
So I still don't like the boxes here, and I can kind of see how you get Pro, but the P is a little weird. The R and the O I get more than the P, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the that's all cool. You open this thing up. It was, I don't know. I had set up an iPad the night before. I had swapped cases on multiple. I had set up
Hmm.
my granddaughters. I had helped set up my wife. So I was kind of burned out a little bit on setup by the time I got to my own.
Yeah.
But what I didn't want to do is get started on mine and neglect theirs. But I did go in. I started from scratch. That experience is a little different now too. I did use my phone close to it, so it would set up the Wi-Fi and the Apple account and all that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
then did basically everything.
You reminded me too. Did your wife do that? Right, because she was restoring
Yeah,
from
everything
her
else was
11,
restore.
11 inch. Okay,
Everything else
but
was restored.
was she able to just hold her phone close to it
Yep.
and do the
Yep.
whole?
It was fine.
Okay, okay,
And
good. Yeah.
even the 10 inches, maybe this is a good thing. I had never gone through and set up an iPad that gave me the option of setting it up for one of the kids. So, my
Right.
daughter, it's her account plus her kids' accounts. And so she's working weird shifts, like she's been doing some graves. And so I'm here texting her saying, "Hey, I need this or I need this. Will you approve this OTP?" And because I went through and set up both of them that I set up for a kid, not for myself,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
it was set up and it actually goes through the sign in process twice. You have to put in the parent Apple ID, then it goes through and asks
Yep.
you who it is, and you do some
And then
stuff, and
sign
then
in
it said,
there.
okay, now it's ready for this person, and then it reboots and it goes through some stuff again. It was super slick and that worked well, but that put in all the screen time restrictions. There were a couple of apps that I wanted to download, like Disney Plus, which was a big reason we were doing this, that she had to approve. So she's got all of that stuff set up correctly. The only thing I didn't like that she had set up on the oldest ones, I went in and because I downloaded Pigment, and Pigment is awesome for coloring, but it's like $8 a month if you want the pro stuff. It used to be
Okay.
more expensive. It used to be like $8 a week, but now it's like $8 a month. But I went in and I turned off in-app purchases because I didn't want her
Okay.
inadvertently doing anything, right? So
Right.
but anyway, went through that. That setup was fine. But like I said, it was a little burned out when I got to mine. And so, but I did start from scratch. At this point, I have downloaded, I think, most of the apps that I need. But I didn't download everything. I haven't put a single game on this yet, including some of the Apple Arcade stuff that eventually I'll put on there. So mostly it's been my study stuff, some of my professional stuff, because I want to use this for all of those things. Love the fact that I wasn't using LastPass this time and everything was in
Yep.
Keychain. And that has just made it so much easier to get through all of that stuff. So yeah, it went super smooth. I still think it's indexing a little bit because like I pulled it off the charge this morning and didn't really do anything with it, and it was at like
Mhm.
95%, and I come back and it's like 75%. But I don't judge battery life on a new device for at least 72 hours, right?
Right.
So because it's
Especially
still
when you're
churning away.
doing, yeah, you're still installing stuff.
Yeah.
It's still.
Yep. So it was great. Popped it right in the keyboard and had to do a software update. It didn't tell me which version I was updating to, but I had to do a software update. I had to get the other two onto 7.5.1. So it took a little longer. And I realized that
Mhm.
we didn't have a great connection to my T-Mobile here. So like my wife's had like 14 gigs to restore because it restores all your
Yeah.
videos and everything, right? So I had to bring it down here and set it on the bed here so that it was right next to the main Eero, not the one that's clear across the house.
Yeah.
Was good. But yeah, the experience is great. I mean, it's just not a problem to upgrade or to go from a backup or to install from scratch. I just wanted everything clean. I didn't want to go from my mini to put my mini on the iPad. Right. That's what I didn't want to do.
Right.
And so, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so your next question was, should you install the beta? What do you
Yeah.
think?
I'm thinking I probably won't. Not until I need this to settle a little bit, I think. So I
Yeah.
probably sorry guys, I'm drinking. It's been one of those days. Not drinking hard stuff. This is Coke Zero. That's as hard as it gets for me. But I'm thinking the first public beta I'll probably put on it because one of the reasons I got this is I want the smart script, right? I want to be able to write and have it clean up my
Yeah.
handwriting, and I want to be able to do more with the pencil and less with the keyboard. And I want to see if they've fixed some of the things with Stage Manager. I tried it this morning. So
Yeah.
when I study, I've got scriptures in English, scriptures in
Hmm.
Portuguese, and my journal app. I actually have moved away from notes and journal. So everything is just going into day one now. So I've gone down by one
Okay.
window. And so I did my study in split view. That was fine. And I used day one as slide over, and I would just move it whichever direction I needed to. Because sometimes when I'm reading in Portuguese, I need to read in English, right?
Hmm.
Because I don't, sometimes the context is a little different. So after I got done, I needed to balance the checkbook and do some financial stuff. And I have several apps that I have open when I do that. So I thought, okay, I'll turn on Stage Manager or I'll arrange a couple of stages. And I liked the setup that I had for my study. So I had, my Portuguese on the left half of the screen. Then I had my
Hmm.
English on the right quarter of the screen and my day one on the bottom recorder on the right side, right? So it was split like that. Cool thing about the Gospel Library app that I use for my study is if you've got the same section of scripture open in English and Portuguese and you scroll one, it'll scroll the other automatically.
Yeah.
So it
Okay.
stays in
That's
sync.
cool.
So, and I didn't realize it would do that if you had completely separate windows. I knew it if I was using split view within the app because it supports two
Right.
windows within the app. I knew it would, but it did that. So that was great. But then I tried using it. So I signed into my bank and I got to get an OTP. And when you're in Stage Manager, no predictive text, no OTP. And that's a bug that has been reported to Apple from day one. And apparently
Right.
it's not fixed. So I don't know. Is it fixed in the beta or
You
not?
know, I don't I don't believe it is, but I can't recall a case where I needed it and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but
Even
I don't
with
I don't
even with
believe that it is.
even with Safari in full screen in Stage Manager, the only window open full size, you don't get the
Yeah.
little pop-up that allows you to click and autofill, which is important now because not only does it autofill, but it also deletes the message that you get, right? So yeah, so I was a
So yeah,
little
I don't recall it, but the improvements to Stage Manager, it feels the same. It feels the same. So I don't think anything has behind the scenes has changed with it, but I don't I can't recall if it's been corrected
yeah.
in the beta.
So anyway, so I may not be I got to play with it a little more. So Stage Manager has
Yeah.
been a disappointment so far, but that may be a reason to put in the beta because I've heard like Federico and Mike and others talk about how they finally did right by Stage Manager in the beta, so I'll have to play with it.
Yeah, I think Sage Manager is, for me at least, I use it every now and then when I'm just on the iPad. But I find Stage Manager most useful when you're using an external monitor. And I know that's what they intended, right? On a 13-inch screen, I never find myself using more than maybe two, three windows, right? So if that's the case, then most of the time it's just going to be either split view or slide over, right? I use slide over for my messages or whatever other app I'm using. I'll have the main window and maybe a window behind that I could swap over to. But yeah, Stage Manager I think is mainly is the main use is using an external
yeah,
monitor. So but yeah, play with it some more. It is a really cool feature, but I think you'll probably be like me using split screen and slide over more than Stage Manager itself until you start using an external monitor.
yeah. I may use it. I may turn it on for my study and then turn it back off.
Right.
Right? It's one button in the control center. Super easy to do. I wish the port, the pass-through charging port, was MagSafe. I went to pull it
Yeah.
out and went to put it in and realized you have to have it lined up perfectly. So I wish that was like the MagSafe they have for the MacBook, which is awesome. The magnets connecting to the keyboard are crazy strong, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
thing, you have to pull it to get it off. That's a thing. I didn't realize how much I miss Face ID. Very good.
Right. Right.
Very, very, very good. Makes me want it on my MacBook. Hover, the with the pencil, where you hover over and it shows you what you're going to tap on. Man,
Yeah.
that thing
The
is
little yeah.
super, super nice when you're navigating with the pencil. Love that part. I already
Okay.
talked about the music library size, Stage Manager. Oh, yeah, that's kind of, those are kind of the things I've done so far. I'm sure I'll have more to talk about as we go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. That's good. So I had a few questions here, and just we can talk it through. I know we're running a little long, but again, once we start talking about iPads, that's I'm all for it. So my first question is, how do you plan on using an iPad? So you kind of spoiled my the ultimate thing I was getting at, which was where does this leave your MacBook? But how do you plan on now? You made the purchase. How do you plan on using it now? We'll talk about the future here next, but what do you plan on using this iPad for now?
Everything I can. So I've
Yeah.
put the Office suite of apps on here. So anytime I'm doing stuff for my clients, I plan on using it for video calls. I plan on using it. I'm gonna try and download Chrome. Not try and download. I'll download Chrome and try and edit the podcast on Riverside. I don't think it's gonna work,
Right.
but I want to see just how much I could potentially do in
Yeah.
Riverside on Chrome on the iPad. All of my personal study, all of my video. Uh, about the only thing that I don't plan to use this for that I've been using, like if I can't do it on my Mac on it because I have to do it on my MacBook, fine. But like it's going to
Yeah.
replace everything but reading. There's still something about me being able to hold this iPad mini like this and read a book. And I read a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
So, what do you
so
think about the weight, though? Because remember, I was telling you I can one hand this in landscape mode, and it's comfortable. Not like my old M2, which where I couldn't do that. I do hold it in portrait mode one handedly. But what do you think about the weight and the size? I mean, I
so
know
if
it's not iPad Mini, but is it
yeah, if
comfortable enough for you to hold and read?
I mean look up right now, Jason, at the camera, and you can see I've
Hmm.
got mini and pro side by side. There is
Right.
not,
Right.
from a weight standpoint, it doesn't really feel that different. The
Yeah.
difference is when I hold the iPad mini like I'm holding this Pro now, the top's not going to tip, right? It's a leverage
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. But if I was just sitting and reading a book or something like that, just like this, I think it'd be fine. So
Yeah.
the weight is not the issue. I think it's more the size, right? And um
Yeah.
some of that kind of stuff. So
Okay. So that's my next question. One of the things I love about my iPad is yes, you can do a ton with it, but it's trying to figure out what I can do with it. Right? For example, you get a task, like you just said, you're going to download Chrome and see just how much of the show you can edit. And if it works out fine for you, if you can get everything done on the iPad, that's one less task that you would go to your MacBook for. So that's one of the things that I love is just trying to figure out tasks to do on the
yeah,
iPad that I can say I don't need a computer for. I don't need an extra hard drive, even though this is a terabyte. I still have my NAS in the living room where I can store everything that I need and access it there on the what is it 23 terabytes or however much it is. So I offloaded that from having to use a laptop, being able to download stuff online and all of that. I don't need a laptop for. So um, I love figuring out new things to do on my iPad. So how do you see yourself in the future using your iPad, or I should say, what are some of the things that you want to try? I know you said everything you can, but what are some of the things that you want to try that now you currently do on your MacBook or the Mac Mini? I mean, your MacBook or the iPad Mini or any other device that you have that you're going to try to offload in the future, even if there's not an app that exists for it now. What do you see yourself using it for?
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if
Right,
we could
right, right.
do, I don't have anything I do for clients that I can't do on my iPad. The only thing is the
Okay,
software we're
that's a
currently
win.
using. The only thing we're the software we're currently using, I don't know if it'd work even on Chrome on the iPad for the software platform that we're implementing right now. So that
Right.
might be the only thing I would need the Mac for. It actually struggles with Safari on the Mac. And there are functions I can't even do on Chrome on the Mac because it requires Java, and I'm just not touching that with a 10-foot pole, and I don't need to.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. That would be probably the biggest reason I can't get rid of this. But I want to do some writing for the next little while. I have a few ideas of some stuff you and I have been talking about a little bit. I'm potentially going back to school. If I go back to school, I want to be able to do all of the school stuff on the iPad.
Yeah.
I want to get back to my artwork,
Yeah.
which is another reason I went with the 13, is that's just so much easier the bigger canvas you have.
Yeah.
Um,
And the Apple Pencil, because we
yep,
talked about you
yep,
just getting an ESR pencil like me, or yeah.
yep. All my journaling, I want to move to this, and I actually want to move to writing for my journals, not just typing.
Hmm.
Even if it's the smart script that turns it into text, searchable text, right? That just cleans up my handwriting, or even if it's just scribble that turns it into actual text, right? I want to
Yeah.
write. There's something about that action for me. So I want to do more of that, and coloring, which is very therapeutic
Yeah.
and some of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty for me to be using this for in the future. And hopefully the only thing I'm using my MacBook for are the show production, and then maybe those few testing things I need to do for my clients. Uh, that would be That would be my goal. I mean, I still want the audio channels. I still want the video channels. You've got to question the next one. Well, one of your next questions: what external devices are you considering? I'm gonna want a hub, I think, at some point, especially if I realize I can record the show or do some of those kinds of things with it. It's another reason I went with the Apple. Well, there's two other reasons I went with the Apple Magic Keyboard. One is the pass-through charging. You don't get that on the ESR because it's Bluetooth, so it's not taking advantage of the smart connector. So there's that. And then the other thing is just to realize I did buy Apple Care for all these devices, or Apple Likes, as Jason
Okay.
likes to call it. And
Yeah.
when you buy Apple Care for an iPad like this, it covers the Magic Keyboard and the pencil as well. So if I have problems with any of those things, it's covered under my Apple Care warranty. So
Okay. I didn't think the keyboard was covered
yep,
or the
yeah, it
pencil.
is.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah,
All right. So you kind of answered this one. So we'll just go through this one real quick. Well, I'll be more specific. So I put how is it going to affect your other device uses? And I know, like we said, like you said, you're going to offload a lot of tasks from the MacBook. But I guess I really want to know about the phone and let's say the Apple TV. You mentioned earlier you're going to watch more movies and stuff on this thing. Will you use this to like cast to the TV, like play the video from your Apple Movies or wherever you store your video files on a device to cast to the TV and bypass having a need for an Apple TV? Or are you going to take
no,
phone calls and stuff like from your phone? Like we say, you just get home, you put your phone on your MagSafe charger by the bed or in the office, and then just use your iPad and take all your calls and stuff like that. Are you planning on doing stuff like that?
I don't think it'll bypass the TV, mostly because the grandkids will use the TV a ton. But I think for the phone, I mean, if I'm working on my MacBook, I don't touch my phone as a general rule anyway. I'm doing all my messaging. I don't take a lot
Yeah,
of phone calls, unless they're through Teams or Zoom or something like that, right? So that all is going to
yeah,
transfer over. I do think if the camera were the same in the Pro and the Pro Max, that I would probably be going back to the smaller phone because I don't know why I need the bigger phone now when I've
yeah,
got these other devices. But the camera,
yeah,
I want the camera. So I think the biggest impact will be on the Mini, right? I keep reaching over here to my trusty Mini, and we'll see if I remove things like numbers and the productivity apps and all of those kinds of things off of the iPad Mini that I used to just kind of check things when I was on it. That's what I think. It does this really just become a little bit of email, maybe social media, and the Kindle and the Deseret Bookshelf app, which is where I read, and Libby, right? Does it really just become those? So I do foresee the dock on my Mac and the dock on my iPad Mini changing and having less things in them. So
yeah. Okay. So the last question I had, and we can take this question and just kind of roll it right into the recommendations because you already got an idea of the things that you want to buy. So it was basically what external devices are you considering buying? And I don't necessarily mean like cases and things like that because I know, like I said, we're playing the waiting game now for more MagSafe stuff, and I know you want a MagSafe case and all of that, but I mean more of like external devices like a camera or microphones or external hard drives and things like that. What other external devices are you thinking? And I say this too because a lot of people they'll dock their iPad like me, and they'll have not just a Bluetooth keyboard, but they'll actually have an external desktop keyboard, one of
right.
those mechanical ones that people like to use. Are you considering stuff like that? A keyboard, an actual wired mouse, or an optical mouse that connects to the hub or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a hub. Again, I'm going to be in a trailer, so I don't think an external monitor is in my future. I
Okay.
sold that as part of the yard sale.
Oh, you sold the little 15-inch portable
No,
one. You
no. I
sold that
still
one too.
have that one. So that one would
Okay.
still work, right? The 4K
Right.
one. No, I sold the big 27-inch or whatever it was that I had. That
Okay.
one I sold. So I don't think anything like that. Uh, because I plan on being wherever I want to be to sit. I don't plan on sitting at a workspace for the most part. And so, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Other than a
Yeah.
docking station, I think in the future, I just don't know what else I need. If they make this so that I can record, edit, and publish the podcast and the video, the YouTube video, then I would buy
Mhm.
high-end docking station, high-end
Yeah.
camera, and high-end. Well, I've already got a really good mic, but I would want to be able to run all of that stuff at the same time. But the hardware's not the problem, right? The software is just not capable of doing all of that
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Take us back to my rant from last week. This is it's a big disappointment, but there are some things that I enjoy and that I love about the beta that I'm running, and but we'll talk about that another time. So let's get into these recommendations. Then I'll start at the bottom because you mentioned a hub, and I put a Thunderbolt hub because I think you definitely need one. But I think starting off now, especially with your space requirements and stuff that you're going to have in a trailer, one of those little portable ones is actually what I'm using now. I finally decided on one, a higher end one that I want. This Adele that has all of the ports that I need, as well as 4K HDMI and stuff like that. But a portable one like the one I sent, I think you should start off with one of those, and that will allow you to be able to, if you wanted to use a microphone and all the other stuff, can still make use of that. And uh, if you decide to upgrade in the future, you didn't invest so much into, the portable one that you're like, well, I'm already $200 in. I might as well stick with this one. Um, the one I got is similar to this Anchor one that I sent, but of course I didn't pay the $44 for it. I think I spent $26 with coupons and whatever deal was it around. Um, it wasn't a Amazon Prime Day. It was the Black Friday. You know how they do the week of, and they have all of the different sales and stuff. So it's one of those lightning deals, and I scored it for $26. But yeah, definitely a portable hub will give you those options and stuff that you're looking for with a lower price tag.
Yeah.
So, but again, you had mentioned that one.
Yeah.
But my first one that I have is a portable adjustable stand. So these are going to be for times when you're not using the keyboard, right? Because it's similar now with the Magic Keyboard. The iPad kind of floats right there in front of you, and it's adjustable. So think about that, but without the keyboard, right? If you want to use an external keyboard, or if you buy a little cheap one like me to put on your lap if you need to type in a few texts, but you really just want the trackpad, then one of those stands is perfect. I use one out in the shop, and it just kind of I can adjust it up or down or back and forth, but I kind of have it sitting up like where I can view my messages and reply to messages and things like that and everything, and it's kind of floating up off of the table, so I'm not getting oil or any grease or anything like that on it. It just sits up off of the table, so and then it folds down flat, not like a super flat like a thin case or something, but it folds down pretty flat and it's pretty adjustable. So I would definitely want to recommend an adjustable stand for you. Definitely a MagSafe one. They're coming in the future. There are none now. Uh, they're all for the older iPad, the M2 and the Air, but some are coming. So once they get that Mag, and I keep calling it MagSafe, but magnetic because
Yeah.
it's not MagSafe. It doesn't charge or
Right.
anything, but you'll be able to connect it with the magnets. So those are all really good ones. The next one is either Slick Wraps or D Brands. One of the I was asking you if you had an older coupon because you used to always send me your coupons. Now they do have like it's like up to 30% off or something on the website. Of course, none of that is going to apply to the newer ones because they're all new, right?
Yeah.
So none of them going to apply to the new iPad. But
I'm thinking
have you seen the one?
I'm thinking
The
on
one
this.
that shows like the internals
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
That is really cool.
They are, and I
I
like
like
the
that.
retro ones. So here's the thing: this is a big device, right? So
Right.
anything you put on it's going to be bold and out there. So
Yeah.
one of the things I'm considering is taking one of the pictures that I've drawn or one of the pictures that I've taken of one of our temples, right, and
Yeah.
having it turned into a wrap to put on the back of this because I do focus a lot on church. No secret to anybody that's listened to the podcast. And a
Yep.
place that I'm going to take this is church. And when I go to church, I'm more likely to not take the keyboard and potentially just take the iPad itself and not even have it in a folio case or anything like
Yeah.
that. And so I've, I think I sent you a link to this case that I found that I thought was super cool. Yeah, it's in your messages, but I would like to take it maybe in something like that, where it allow me to, I think based on that case, I could put my mini in with it. I could put a charger in with it. The pencil goes in it and a few other things. And so I think something like that. So if I were going to do something like that, I may want to put a skin on the back of it just to protect the back. The front will be fine with the screen protector, right? But maybe a skin on the
Yeah.
back to protect it. So
Okay. That's a good idea. And I think either Slick Wraps or D Brands, you can submit your own
yeah,
picture and stuff
yep.
for it, and they'll. Okay. So the next one I have is you're a gamer, you're a mobile gamer. I know you like your Joy Cons. You know what's the best controller that I've used on my Nintendo Switch? It was my Xbox controller. So that's my recommendation. Is an Xbox controller. I sent a link. It doesn't have to be one for the Series X or the Series S. You can buy an Xbox One controller. It has the Bluetooth in it, not like the older Xbox controllers, but it is a comfortable and portable controller to use. You can use your Joy Cons. You can actually pair your Joy Cons to it now and play a
Yeah.
ton of games.
I've
They're
got
just
the
not
Pro
my.
controller. I've got the Pro controller for the Switch,
Will it
which I
pair
find,
with the?
I don't know. I'll have to look into it. It's super comfortable.
Okay.
I love the rumble, all that kind of stuff built in. But when I play baseball and basketball, there's just that couple of millisecond lag, and which I'm sure people that play first person shooter games don't tolerate, right? There is no tolerance
Yeah.
for any lag or stuff like that, but it's just enough to throw me off. So I don't use it a ton. The Joy-Cons physically connected to the Switch tend to not have that problem. So, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, some of this may depend on what Nintendo decides to do later this year from a hardware standpoint too. So,
Right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You may be buying a newer version of the Pro controller anyway,
yeah,
and it may be the Bluetooth that'll allow you to connect to the devices and stuff. But yeah, yeah, definitely that an external controller. So Xbox controller, either one of those, one of your Joy Cons or your Pro controller or something like that. Because gaming on this thing, it's a lot of fun.
yeah,
I'm more of a console gamer. I've mentioned that before. But when I do get to sit down and play, what is it, the Hungry Shark game? It just plays best with the controller. It
okay,
does. I know it's touchscreen. You can tap on the screen and swipe around and all of that, but man, it feels comfortable controlling that shark. Eating people and fish up with a controller in my hand. So yeah, definitely, it's good for gaming. So try some of that. But yeah, those are my recommendations. I have a ton, but I know we're running long, so we can go ahead and move on.
yeah. So here's my proposal, Jason. Jason and I don't deal with this stuff behind the scenes. We just leave it in the video because part of it's I'm too lazy to edit it out. But so here's the spoiler for either next week when Jason hosts a show or the one after when I do. While I was at the Apple store, the last thing I asked the guy that checked me out for purchasing my iPads was, when is your next Vision Pro demo appointment? Because there was a guy sitting there getting a demo and he pulls it up and he says, it's in 15 minutes. I'm like, sign me up. So
Yeah,
I wandered the mall and went back. So I did have a demo of the Vision Pro. Let's talk about it either next week or the
yeah,
week after. And I'll hold on to that because the only other topic I had for today was the AirTags. We already talked about the fact that I bought them, and we're going to talk about them again in our bonus topic about good and bad of tech. So how does that sound, Jason? Can we do that?
yeah, yeah. We can do that. We'll put that out.
All right. Because I do have quite a bit to say about the demo. I think it'll be a really good conversation. All right. Well, that's it for today then. I hope some of the logic, it's a little weird talking about this stuff that I bought, and I feel blessed to have been able to buy it because I've been wanting to for quite some time. But I hope
Yes.
that some of this logic and some of the conversation can help you if you're on the fence, or we are going into school and you're going to have to make some decisions about what type of devices. Do I get a MacBook Air? Do I get an iPad for my kids? Some of that will depend on the school district. So I'm hoping that some of this logic and why I decided to do what I did for myself and for my family helps you if you're looking to make a decision on devices. I really did go back and forth a ton. That's not just something we're saying for the show. I do believe I made the right choice for me in my situation, for my wife in her situation, and for my grandkids. And again, 99% of people should just go with it. If you can get by on an iPad, which our entire school district does, if you can get by on an iPad, that's what you
Yeah.
should be going with, right? So is the iPad,
Yeah.
the 10th gen, it's fine. They're probably going to revamp it here in a few months, fine. But that thing is rock solid. It's not going to lose OS support for years. It'll be solid for years. So there's no reason not to go for it. And then hopefully if you're trying to debate between the Air and the Pro, and it's not really a matter of I got to hit my budget, then hopefully, we've given you some things to think about there. So
Yeah.
if you're wanting to hear our discussion on the good and bad of tech, don't forget to watch that next video or to listen to the post show if we're coming to you from your favorite podcast player. We're going to have that conversation. I think that's it. Jason, anything to close us out?
No, that was again. If you guys are listening and you're an iPad fan like me, just put in the comments. Welcome back, Greg. Welcome to the team.
If you
And
have
we'll
questions,
see
if
you
you're
guys next week.
debating on
Oh
something
yeah.
in particular, drop that in the comments too. We do respond to all the comments that we get. So, yeah, let us know. Happy to answer the questions.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you. Welcome to this Gadgets for Families bonus episode, bonus topic, post show, depending on how you consume the content. We ran longer on the regular topic for today and actually had to bump some stuff to next week or the week after. But part of that's because we get talking about iPads and there's
Yeah.
just so much to talk
Yeah.
about. And, it's not my favorite Apple device. It might be closer to my favorite Apple device after I use this new one for a while, but my watch still kind of is my favorite. But anyway, so thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, follow, all that kind of stuff. But what we want to talk about now is going to be a little bit different. We want
Yeah.
to talk about good, bad tech. Okay. And so I'm going to put a disclaimer in here. We've always said that we don't try and tell parents how to parent. We're going to tell you what we do. We're going to give suggestions on how you can do certain things, but ultimately it is up to you to decide how to work with your kids on this stuff. So for example, we were talking about social media and the goods and bad of social media, which would tie right into this topic. And one of the things I said is the most important thing is that you sit down and get on the same page with your kids, right? That advice still holds. Whether you decide to let them have Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, WeChat, whatever the case may be, that's up to you as a parent. But you need to get on the same page with them. So there are some things that Jason and I have some very strong opinions that we believe every parent should follow. But there's a lot of areas where we're just going to say, hey, this is what we do. And that may or may not work for you. Today, though, we want to talk about something that's come up in the media. And Jason, maybe this is the time for you to bring up your comment. I know it's a little later in here, but maybe
Yeah.
this is the time for you to bring up and talk about what the media does with some of these tech topics.
Yeah. So you're right. I guess we should talk about this first because the media, and it's not just with tech. This is with everything, right? We see it now with politics. We see it now with all kind of controversies and stuff coming out of schools and policies and things like that with government. And tech is just another thing just thrown in the fire. And they always take a negative, like fear mongering approach to anything, right? Nothing is ever regular, right? You don't see a news story where you see a child being bullied in school and they don't go regular child being bullied in school. No, it's always a special needs child or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that these things don't happen, but it just seems like the media attaches on to the negative aspects of any topic, right? It can't be
Yeah.
a man that got into a wreck. He has to be a disabled veteran that got beat up by the police or something like that. Nothing's ever regular.
It's
So a
polarization,
lot of the
right? So
yeah,
sorry, Jason, but it's this
yeah,
polarization piece that either it has to be a really bad person that something happened to, or a really good person that something happened to, what we would call quote unquote
Exactly.
normal in the middle, we are so desensitized to stuff that it seems like the media has to make everything more sensational than it really
Yes.
should be just to get clicks or views or likes or bring in the ad revenue or something like that. And so, unfortunately, this is, and we told you we were going to have lots of opinions. So, just if you don't want to hear our opinions, you should turn it off
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But we are so polarized. There's my version of good and my version of bad, and there's nothing in between. That's what our
Yeah.
society is coming down to, right? And so the media just feeds into that. There's no gray area, no um, compromise. There's no, your view can be different than mine, and that's okay. One,
Yeah.
it's my way or the highway, and that is the end of the story. There's end of
Yeah.
part of Iran, which I'm sure won't be the last one for this.
And again, like we said, we don't parent parents, but what we want you to do is see through all of that. We want you to see through the manipulation that the media uses, because bringing it back to the show, they use that with tech stories
Yep.
all the time. So Greg mentioned in the last show, in the first half of the show, about the AirPod, the AirTag being such an underrated device. And I think I agree with you. One, it is underrated. It is a great device, great piece of technology, reasonable price for some a company like Apple.
$25.
Yeah, for some really powerful and useful technology. But I think that people's introduction from to that technology was all of the negativity and all of the fear
Yeah.
mongering that the media use, right? So and again, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the devices and stuff. But I think just from the very start, the AirTag was just so beaten down that some people just, when you hear AirTag, just like companies, when you think about soda, you think about Coca Cola. When you think about an MP3 player, you think about an iPod, right? They're just,
Yep.
those names are synonymous with that. So when you hear AirTag, now you immediately think this is how the ex-husband tracks his wife, his ex-wife. This is how the controlling boyfriend. You know what I mean? This is how some
Yeah.
bad actor uses. This is a tool that bad people use. Like when you hear spy camera, right?
Yeah.
You think spy camera, oh, this camera is used to spy on people. Well, no, it can be a little compact camera that you want to use to view stuff. But when you say spy camera, so when you hear AirTag now, that just it's always in the back of your head. So I think just from the start, the media beat that product up to now most people just don't want to deal with it, or don't
Yeah.
want to bother with it, or don't want it around them. So
Yeah.
that's my little rant about that. But what we want to do with this conversation is try to get you to see through all of the negativity, because it's not just technology. It's like I said, politics, it's policies, it's sports teams, it's everything. See through the negativity and make your own
Yeah.
decisions about some of this technology and stuff, especially when it comes to AI,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of that, and a lot of people down talking AI that's not even AI. Right? We
Yep.
mentioned it before. They kind of just bunch everything in and just call it AI, and a lot of it is not out to spy on you or to replace jobs or to replace
Yeah.
humanity. A lot of it is just something cool to do, a cool little tool to help you
Yeah.
along with some task or something like that. But enough about that.
Yeah.
So we can jump into it, Greg.
Yeah. Here's the last thing wrapping up on the AirTags. You heard all the stalking stories, but unless you
Yeah.
follow tech stuff, you don't hear all of the people that found their luggage that the
Right.
airlines lost because they had an AirTag in it, and they were able to tell the airline where it was and get it back. And so you don't hear, they're always going to sensationalize the bad stuff and marginalize the good stuff because the good stuff is considered boring or
Yep.
whatever. So,
It's not
Jason,
interesting enough.
there's kind of two things that came out of this. One is this general thing about AI is going to take away everybody's jobs. Okay. And it's going to replace human beings. And this is not even the people that go clear to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, right? That the AI is going to rise
Yeah,
up, or
Skynet. You're
iRobot,
right.
right? And going to destroy the world. But put all of that stuff aside, because that's not what we're going to go. So there's this concern about AI replacing jobs, and there is valid concern, right? but I don't think it's for the reasons. Like they're saying, well, people are gonna the AI is the problem, and we'll get into this a little bit. I don't think it's the AI that is the problem. It's how the AI is used, and that kind
Yeah.
of gets down to the crux of what we want to talk about. But one of the specific things that came out of Apple's presentation, and I'm going to be very, very specific, and I'm going to disagree a little bit with some of the folks that I've heard talk about this, is the ability that they have to generate images of other people and
Yeah.
cartoon like images. One of the examples they used was be able to send your mom a AI generated cartoon of your mom with a cape and say, "You're my superhero," right?
Yeah.
Which super, super, super cool, in my opinion. And Apple's gone on the bandwagon and talked about how this is really cool. It's fun. We're trying to be the hip, cool ones. You know, people have been able to do this stuff on Android and using other apps for a very, very long time. And then you hear the other side of this. And I think some of the media that I've heard talk about this are doing it just to get the clicks. Others, I think,
Yeah.
have some legitimate concerns. I'm just going to tell you kind of where this comes. I've got 3 grandkids. They're going to be going to school. They're going to be exposed to all kinds of things that they are not exposed to at home. Right. So my oldest is going into kindergarten. She's then going to continue on. Look, my wife has worked in an elementary school in a fairly conservative town for 7+ years and has gotten exposed to everything that Jason sees in Houston school
Yeah.
districts. Right. I mean, there's not a difference. It just, you're going to
Yeah.
get exposed
Kids,
to all
kids
of
are
this stuff.
kids.
Correct.
Right.
So going into this with this image generation stuff is the concern that once kids have phones and have this kind of technology, it's going to be used to bully, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be used to make fun of, bully, make people feel bad. No different than social media, right? I mean, same thing with social
Yeah.
media accounts, which is why Jason and I are such advocates of you being deliberate about your kids with social media and deliberate with your kids in technology in general, right? So if we think about AI's ability to take away people's jobs, AI's ability to be used to bully, right? And then think about the air tags, right? It's got the potential for some super negative stuff, stalking, all of those kinds of things. Those concerns are all valid. I mean, trust me, and my oldest is a granddaughter, and I get a little more worried about my daughters, right? I get, daughters, granddaughters. There's a little bit of Papa Bear wants to protect
Yeah.
those maybe a little more than he does the sons and the grandsons. But I'm going to be concerned about this in general. But my problem is that the question came up: should Apple have built that image generation technology? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the question I posed to Jason when I got thinking about this: is should a tech company not develop a product or service because it could potentially be used for bad stuff? That's the
Yeah.
question.
I think that's a horrible way to think about anything. To approach the future, right? The development of new technologies and health technologies. Any kind of technology. I mean, even if we're talking about an axe, right, which is still technology. At one point in history, many many years ago, that was cutting edge technology. Boom! I didn't mean that pun,
Dad
but
joke, grandpa
you know,
joke.
there, yeah, there are axe murderers, right? But the axe was built to make people's lives better. It was
Mhm.
made to clear land and to build structures, beautiful structures and homes and stuff like that. Are there always going to be axe murderers? Yes. So when we talk about things, should companies do things because bad people are going to do things with them? I think that's a horrible line of thinking. Um, do the companies have some responsibility to protect people or to put in measures and stuff to protect people better and stuff um, from bad people or from bad actors that'll do nefarious things with their products and their services and their devices? Yes, they do have some responsibility to protect people from it. Whether that be warning messages or other software and technology to prevent it from being misused. Yes, that's their responsibility. But I don't think any company should approach any kind of technology, any kind of software, any kind of innovation with the idea that maybe we shouldn't do this because it's going to hurt people or possibly be used for
Right.
the wrong thing. So
Yeah.
how
Uh,
do you feel about that? Do you think that they should develop with that in mind? Should we be doing this, or should they just do it and then work on ways to protect people from?
yeah. If you've got an idea, product or service, and you want to bring it to the market, and the only thing it could ever be
Mm-hmm.
used for is bad, yeah,
Yeah.
probably shouldn't do it, right? But there are very, very, very few things that would fall in it. I was trying to think of an example, and the only thing that really came to mind was nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Nuke,
thought. The original one, not the
yeah,
hydrogen bombs. That was the way to fix all the
yeah,
bad things with the nuclear one. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you. That was my
yeah.
first thought. Was that original atom bomb?
And then
Me.
I remembered the movie Armageddon, right? That finally the movie Armageddon and the movie The Core were the only thing that could save us in those two
Was that
apocalyptic
right?
scenarios were the very weapons of mass destruction we had created. But that's not what we're talking about here. And I know Jason used the example of the axe, but what we're talking about things, let's stick to the tech for just a minute, right? Think
Yeah.
about the internet. Should we not have the internet because people can use it to stalk? They can put pornography, they can do revenge things, they can do scams, right? They can do
Yeah.
all of those
Stealing and
kinds of things
draining people's
on.
accounts and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, those are horrible, horrible things that can be done. But think back to the pandemic and what we would have done in the pandemic without the internet. Number one, way more people would have died, right? Because there would have just been no way to deal with the pandemic without the internet and everything that's connected to it. And then two, the mental state of society in general went down with the pandemic,
I
right? I mean, more
think
depression,
so.
more
It did.
anxiety, all of those kinds of things. And it would have been how many times worse without Zoom or Teams or
Yeah.
FaceTime or whatever the case may be. So there's one. Email is another one, right? Think about, I mean, I
Yeah.
know we hate our mailboxes, but
Yeah.
email is another one of those things. Should it have never been developed because you could scam people and send bad emails? Messaging, same problem. And I think you added cameras, right? So,
Yes.
uh, or, uh, should we not have cameras because you can take pictures of people, right? I mean, when I
Yeah.
was a scout leader, one of the things was not allowing cameras into restrooms, right? Okay, so does that mean we should
Right.
never have cameras at scout camp? No, because every parent wants to see what were my kids doing at scout camp, right? How did it go?
Yeah.
What did they
Yeah.
learn? We had a few years ago, Karen and I were asked to help chaperone taking all of the youth of our church stake, which was a couple hundred youth or so, back on a church history tour. And there was this
Hmm.
big, huge debate because if you let kids take cell phones, they're going to use them and they're going to use them for good and they're going to use them for dumb stuff too, right? And there was
Yeah.
this big debate on should we even allow the cell phones to go? And there
Yeah.
was a lot of arguments for this. And finally, I said, look, I said, number one, if we ban them, they're going to get stuffed in the bottom of their suitcases and they're going to go anyway. And then I
Yeah.
said, number two, and this is kind of leads into where I stand with all of this kind of stuff. Number two, if we allow them to take them, we have an opportunity to teach them appropriate use
Right.
of their cell
Mhm.
phones, right? They can use them to communicate to their parents. They can use them to take pictures and have all of those memories. They can use them to communicate with their friends that are on the same trip, but part of a different group on a different part of the
Right.
tours and stuff, right? And as leaders, we have a way to communicate with everybody that's in our group. And then we have an opportunity where we're at a meeting or a site that's considered sacred to be able to say, "Hey everybody, go ahead and take your pictures and then we're going to put our
Mhm.
phones away for a bit because now is the time to put our phones away." And um, that's where we ended up landing. The leader that got the ultimate decision on that, he was a good friend of mine, and I'd served in church with him for quite a while, and he agreed with me, and that's the way it went. And we didn't have a single problem with
Yeah.
kids misusing technology. Right. I mean, even today, I walked into the temple, and when we go to the temple, we take other people's ancestors' names into the temple to do work for them.
Hmm.
And you go through on Family Search, which is another thing that came from the internet, connecting all of these families and learning about families and stuff like that. But we don't have a printer right now. I'm not going to have a printer in the RV. And so, but what I do is I can take my phone in and I have a QR code, and they scan the QR code at the desk at the temple and they print the names and cut them out for me. And then I just power my phone off and put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another cool technology, holding my thumb up and getting bubbles on the camera. But anyway, that's another, right? The temple is not a place for technology. You don't talk on the phone in the temple. You don't
Right.
message in the temple, any of that kind of stuff. It's just not necessary. But I could use the tech to be able to
Yeah.
facilitate being able to do stuff. So that's where I stand. You asked where I stand on this kind of stuff. I don't believe the things in and of themselves are the problem. I think it's how they get used. And now I'm going to alienate some parents that may be listening to this, but I believe when we talk about kids bullying, let's just use that image generation stuff. If you're going to go
Yeah.
install iOS 18 on a high school kid's phone, and there's this new technology where they can manipulate the images and all that kind of stuff and maybe do some hurtful things. Same thing with social media, that kind of stuff. If you're going to allow that kind of technology onto your kid's phone, it's up to you whether you do or not, right? It's up to you whether you get them a phone. But if you are going
Yeah.
to allow that kind of technology into their life, I believe it's your responsibility as a parent to have the conversation with them
Yeah.
and help them understand why certain things are okay and why they're not. There are tons of stories out there where kids are bullying other kids and they don't think it's a big deal. And I do appreciate the stories I see when dad goes, no, 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 no. You're going to learn why this
Yeah.
is a big deal. And dad, you're overreacting. No, actually, I'm really not. And I apologize that I didn't teach you this earlier, but now we're going to learn this lesson, right? That
Yeah.
these kinds of things are not okay. So I firmly believe Apple should put all the protections and all of the guidelines around protecting people's jobs, right? I mean, let's face it, this kind of artwork that it's talking about generating is not going to put artists out of business, right?
It's
It's
not.
just not.
It's really not nice. Yeah.
No, it's
It,
it's
it
not.
it's
It's supposed to be that, hey, Jason, this is what I'm thinking about you today, and it's got, it's got a big long Pinocchio nose on it because you said you weren't going to install the betas and you told me you did, right? So liar, liar,
right.
pants on
Right.
fire kind of thing. Fun between
Yeah.
friends. Yes, it can be used for bad things. So Apple should put the protections in place. Apple should make sure that parents are approving usage. And in my opinion, Apple has put in
Yep.
plenty of tools for parents that are willing to put in the work to be able to educate, restrict, and monitor usage of
Yeah.
Apple's stuff. So that's
Yeah.
that's where I fall on this.
And going back to what you said about the camp trip and all of that, and whether or not they allow phones, I think parents y'all ended up not having an issue because y'all allowed the kids to bring their devices, and y'all guided them through how to use them and all of that. This is what parents should be doing, and not only preparing them for how they should be using the devices and the things that they should be doing. You got to prepare them for both sides. Prepare them for what happens if some of their classmates are doing the things to them. You know what I mean? As
Yes.
when you're a parent and you raise children at all ages, at some point you're raising little bullies, and then at some point you're raising the kids that are getting bullied too.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare them for both sides of that with the technology. So this is what happens when someone sends you these type of pictures, because I have a 13-year-old boy, and I have to have this conversation on almost a weekly basis about what do you do when you receive inappropriate material from your friends who are other 13-year-old boys. Now, not to go into details about that, the parents, you know what 13-year-old boys think about, and you know what they want to see and look at. What do you do when you receive that? Back to our conversation. Well, what do you do when you start receiving these pictures and stuff about you appropriate, or you feel that you're being bullied, or they're making fun of you and stuff like that? Take the opportunity to teach them and guide them through both sides of that situation, not just I don't want you doing this and disabling it on the phone or
Right.
disabling that feature or whatever. allow them to use it and let them know the good and the bad. That way, like Greg just mentioned, now you'll see not only why not to do something, but you'll have that opportunity to explain why that's a big deal and how much trouble you can get into
Yeah.
and the outcomes and stuff with that. So yeah, prepare your kid to be a bully and to get bullied, and yeah, I think that'll help out with this technology.
And how to deal with the situation. So part of this is about your relationship with your
Yeah.
kids too, right? This is not a parenting class,
Yes.
but if you've had the conversation up front that says, "Hey, this is how we handle that kind of stuff," and all of a sudden they get their first inappropriate image sent to them, you want them to feel comfortable coming to you and saying, "Hey, I got this. Can you help me
Yes.
figure out how to appropriately deal with this?" And the first reaction that most parents that don't want their kids seeing that kind of stuff is going to have is, on a Christmas Story when Ralphie drops the F bomb and gets his mouth washed out with soap, and then he sells out his best buddy, even though it is his dad that he heard it from, and it was
Right.
Schwartz. And the next thing, he's got the soap back in his mouth, and his mom's on the
Right.
phone with Schwartz's mom saying, "Do you know what your son said? My
And you
son said
hear,
today."
yeah,
Yeah, and then you hear him going, "Ah, Mama, what did I do, Mama?"
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not the reaction that's good with this kind of stuff. You've got to be able to talk this through and say, "Hey,
yeah,
everybody makes their choices, right? Everybody has to have their agency to decide what's right and what's wrong for them, regardless of what we know to be right and what we know to be wrong, right? Everybody has to make those decisions for themselves. That includes parents. And parents, shockingly enough, it's going to include your kids, right? You're going to have to let
yeah,
them make some of these decisions. I always used to use the example of, if I lock down every single thing I can on my internet and never have a
yeah,
conversation about what's locked down and what's not, the first time they get out on cellular or they get to somebody else's network that's not locked down and get to a site, they don't know what to do with that. And you got to teach that kind of stuff, and you got to
right,
have that kind of relationship so that they're willing to talk to you about that stuff. And that's not the point of what we're talking about today, right? Apple, I think, has done a good job. I think, Jason, you would agree with me. We've spent a lot of time talking
I
about
think so.
restrictions and screen time and all this kind of stuff. I don't think we should be putting any technology company in the position of saying, don't develop the tech that's potentially world changing just because it could be used for bad things. Now, I want to say a couple of things here, and I don't know what kind of chords I'm going to strike, but there is
Hmm.
evidence that some of the social media companies have deliberately continue to do things to addict people, to pull in younger
Yep.
generations, right? To do that kind of stuff. I am in no way advocating that you do any of those. That is just not right. I mean, even
Yep.
games with micro in-app purchases are playing on psychology, right? They're knowing that they can get you hooked and be willing to spend money and do this kind of stuff, and so there's got to be restrictions
Yep.
around that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us saying, "Hey, Apple, do not allow MMS. Do not allow pictures to be sent via iMessage because you could get some inappropriate pictures."
Yeah.
That's not. There's so many good things that can be done, and if we will teach kids and adults and ourselves how to appropriately use things, and then, like you said, how to deal with when you're tempted to misuse it or when it gets misused on you, right? Then I think we're better off to have this stuff than we are to just say, no, never develop it in the first place because it's going to hurt my kid, right? I don't think we can live in that kind of a world. I mean, we would be back in the Stone Age.
Yeah. Yeah. And we keep saying we don't parent parents. We're not talking down on anyone. Greg seen me grow a lot as a parent. Like he mentions um, about locking down the internet and stuff. With my oldest son, that was my approach. I was a much younger father. I wanted to protect him, or so I thought I was protecting him from all of that type of stuff. And I've grown since then. Greg, like I said, Greg's known me for years now, and I have a totally different approach when it comes to my younger children than I did with him, right? And again, I'm a pretty young grandfather, which shows you which shows you how locking down the internet worked out. Blocking the porn sites at the router level, and making sure his phone is like fully restricted and stuff like that. Where we fast forward all of these years, I have screen time and stuff, and my middle son doesn't have nearly as many restrictions as my older son did. So I'm saying that not to make it seem like we're down talking parents or parents who don't use this or doing things the wrong way. No, everyone's parenting their child the best way that they should. You know your child better than anyone. If you feel that that works for you guys and your household, then by all means continue doing it. But what we want to do is share these examples um, that we use when it comes to
Right.
managing our family's tech and devices and stuff to just kind of give you an idea of well maybe there is a way. And maybe instead of hearing AI and just totally in my head like I don't want to deal with that, it's taking jobs and it's making children turning children into predators. No, that's not what we're saying at all. There's a better way to use this stuff. There's
Yeah.
a better way, and it takes more of an effort from your parents, from the family, from the mom and dad, or just from the parents. Period. I used to say when I
Grandpas.
coached little league, yeah, grandpas too, get involved. I would say all the time when I coached little league, this is more than a commitment from just the kids. You're not just bringing your kids and dropping them off and letting them run up and down the football field or the baseball field. This is a commitment. We need a commitment from the parents too.
Yeah.
You're a part of the team. You know what I mean? So technology doesn't just require a commitment from the manufacturer, from Apple, to put in all of these guidelines to protect us. Your commitment as a parent from having these devices is to participate a little more and be deliberate about protecting your children and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So again, I don't want to get too deep and too philosophical, but I'm saying it just to say we're not coming down on anyone.
Yep.
You're doing a good job as a parent. Just when it comes to technology, we all need to play our role with the technology.
So our recommendation number one, and Jason can say if he disagrees with these though, is to make sure that you have the relationship with your kids so that you can
Yeah,
have these conversations, right?
yeah,
Recommendation number two is to not go with the flow, right? Don't go on the sensational side of stuff or the not a big deal side of stuff, right? Because odds are the best place to be is going to be somewhere in between. And in order for you to figure out what that is in between, you're going to have to do some work because the media is not going to tell you anything other than the sensational or the one side or the other, right? They're not going to fall on the middle of this. And you might have to do some research and dig in to understand both sides and to
yeah,
figure out, is there a happy medium that works for me and my family? If the answer is yes, then take advantage of the tools that have been given you to manage that medium. If the answer is no, take advantage of the tools that says, nope, we're going to shut this off. So that's recommendation number one, conversations, relationship with your kids. Number two is do the work so that you know where you think you need to be. And then you refer back to number one and you sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, I know you really, really want to get to this. You want to get this new. Well, I don't have TikTok, so I'll just use that one. I know you really want to get on TikTok because your friends are all on there. They're sending you stuff. And you can just say, hey, I'm just not comfortable with that right now, and maybe I don't know enough and you can help me and we can do some research together and figure it out, but right now I'm just not comfortable with it. So the answer is going to be no until we can kind of work through this. I just had this
yeah,
conversation about a topic I won't get into. Maybe I'll tell Jason what it is later with my 19-year-old son, that there was something I wanted to do. He was excited. I wanted to do for him. He was excited for this, but there was this nagging thing in the back of my head about how good that thing could go or how bad, right? Absolutely horrible, life ruining that particular topic could be. And so we had 4 or 5 real deep conversations about this. He did some research. I did some research. We talked about the potential negatives of all this kind of stuff. And eventually we worked through and I ended up doing it. I was still a little bit hesitant doing it, right? As the parent going, am I doing the right thing? But
yeah,
he's 19. He's old enough to make some of these decisions on his own. And I felt like we had all the conversations that we needed to have to be able to move forward with it. And I feel confident he was being honest with me about how he was going to handle the stuff. Yeah, it's you've got to do those two things. You've got to have the relationship, and you've got to do the work.
Right. Your conversation, if the situation goes like this, you tell your son, your daughter, your child, you say, hey, give me your phone. I need to check something. Or you say, what's your passcode to your device? Why do you need my passcode? If that's an argument right there, then definitely you should get back to basics, and you need to reconsider your whole relationship as far as technology and things like that. Because if the argument starts at the point of saying what's your passcode, yeah, definitely reevaluate that whole situation
Yeah,
involving tech. If it's a situation like my son and my wife, she says, hey, what's your passcode? You change your passcode. What's your passcode? Oh, it's 1 2 3 8. I had to change it because my classmate was looking over my shoulder and saw, oh, I had to change my password for this because he changes his password a lot. Now, once he gets all of his passwords into the password app, he'll be able to remember that. But he changes passwords a lot, and it's never an argument. It's never an issue when it comes to giving that stuff up. That's the main thing. Have that relationship when it comes to technology. If they do receive some inappropriate material and they come to you and you immediately, why do you have that on your phone, or why are you looking at things like that? And again, I'm not judging. I'm not going. I went down that road. Again, Greg can attest. I've grown as a parent. Now I have those conversations versus immediately, what's that website? Good, taking it to the router and putting it on the block list.
yeah,
And I've grown a lot since then. So I'm not down talking to you, but if that's the reaction that you're getting when you say, hey, let's talk about this, or hey, we need to limit your time on TikTok, or we need to limit your time on Instagram. If that's a major argument from the start, then yeah, reevaluate from
yeah.
the ground up on how your family handles technology and stuff.
Do the work. It's not easy. So even with my
It's not
grandkids, with the limited stuff that they have, it's hard for me to get them to understand why there's certain things we don't want them to do, or why they can't spend
right.
12 hours a day on their tablets, right? Why we're saying now is tablet time. But I'm doing things with my grandkids different than I did with my own kids, right? I mean, partially because they have technology from day one. My kids did not, right? And so, but they just know that if grandpa says, hey, it's time for outside time and time to put away our screens, or whatever the case may be, got to
Yeah.
build up that relationship. Now it's pretty easy. There's 6 5 and or 5 4 and 2, right? And they're 15, 13 and 11. We'll see how easy it is for grandpa to be able to do that, right? But um
that's
it
where
is more
that's where
work.
downtime comes in.
Yeah, it's way more
It's more
work.
work. You're right about that, and it's boring to some people. Right? Some
Yeah,
people don't want to read about technology. Their daughter or their son, their child comes to them and say, "Mom, I want an AirTag," or "How do I use AirDrop?" Because AirDrop is another piece of technology that
yeah,
got villainized really early on, and now everyone uses AirDrop. It's so great. I want to start using this. How do I use this? Your average parent, they don't want to go to
yeah.
forums and instructions and look at YouTube videos on how to use stuff just so they can manage it better for their children. So we understand that we love it, but technology is boring to a lot of people out there,
Yeah.
right? If it doesn't
Well,
work exactly the way that they're advertising it, it's useless to them, you know?
even if you're thinking to yourself, I'm a young parent, but I'm comfortable with all the technology we have today. You will get to the point where your kids are more comfortable with the technology that you go, huh? What? But
Right?
what? Right? Whether it's holograms in the future, or, I mean, things like the Vision Pro is going to introduce a whole set of complications, right? Just,
Yeah.
you're going to get to that point. So, yeah. So we probably should wrap this up. We're hitting almost 3 hours of recording time today, but the thing is, it's not the thing itself, my opinion. It is not the thing
Yeah.
itself that's good or bad. It's how it's used. And it's going to be used for good, and it's going to be used for bad. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
Our job, for anybody we can influence, whether it be our clients, our kids, our grandkids, our families, those in our work, whatever the case may be, you're in that kind of a position to influence this stuff. Your job should be to try and influence people, to help them understand these are the bad ways it could be used. These are the good ways that it can be used, and this is why we want to go in this direction. That is not the responsibility of people creating services and products, in my opinion. Yes, they should put guardrails around it. Yes, they should do all they can to give us the tools to use it properly. I mean, the state of Utah passed a law that says you have to have parental permission to do social media for anybody under 13 or 16. And there's a lot of studies that say that age needs to go up and up and up, right? Because it's just causing so many issues.
I think so.
So some of the
I think
companies
so.
have
Yeah.
complied with that. You can sign up at this age, and a whole bunch of them are getting sued by Utah and a bunch of other states right now because they just didn't do it, right? They're failing, not in the creation of the social media technology, but they're failing in implementing the tools that governments or others have insisted are necessary to protect, right? And to allow it to be
Yeah.
used more for good and less for bad. It's never no bad, it's just less for bad. So that's where I stand on this. It is our job. And that's one of the things that Jason and I always want to try and do is educate y'all, give you information, help you with resources so that you can think through this stuff and decide, okay, this is what's right for me, my family, and my situation.
So the last thing before we wrap up, I wanted to include. So we were talking about how to properly teach people. Is nothing is all or nothing. You get what I'm saying? A new feature comes out. Let's say Apple Intelligent. You don't have to take advantage of all the features and all the aspects of this new technology that comes out, right? Showing your children or parents or whoever that's in your device family how to integrate that and use those aspects of the technology in your life. Figuring out the best way to integrate that technology into your life the best way possible. It's probably the best approach to take with anything, right? Is a gradual kind of measured approach to any technology. For example, we use um, AirDrop, right? It came out, it was wonderful, right? We thought it was going to be the way of the future, and it is. Perverts were doing things on the bus and public transit, airdropping inappropriate materials, and Apple says, wait, let's step back. How do we show people how to protect themselves better? And
Yep.
they re-engineered it into a way to where it's initiated by you. It's initiated by the person who wants to receive whatever information or something like that. That's exactly what Greg was just saying. It's not on Apple to protect you from the technology, but they're required to put their guardrails and things on it to make sure that it's not being used in a way that's going to be damaging to anyone else.
Yeah. And
But back to
Jason,
AirDrop, if you didn't want to use it
yep.
for, I'm sorry, go ahead. If you
No.
didn't want to use it for photos and things like that, you have the ability to not use it, but still be able to share contact information if you
Yep.
wanted to send somebody. You have to send a document. Nothing's all or it's not all or nothing with this tech. Use it in the way that works best for your
Yep.
family. Would be the best way to handle it.
And that's a
But
really
go
good
ahead, Greg. What were you
example
saying?
because AirDrop, I just used AirDrop to get the photos that we set as wallpaper on all three of the kids' iPads,
Yep.
right? And on
Yep.
all three of them, it was off, right?
Yep.
Off by
By default.
default. That's option one. Option two is only people in your contacts, so you have control over who's in your
Another
contacts.
way. Yep.
And option three is everyone for 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then it
And that's it.
automatically defaults back to what you had it on before. You cannot, in that case, turn it on for everyone forever
All the time.
and do that once so you can get that one thing from somebody you're interacting with right then and there and forget to turn it back and 3 days later be on the bus and get material you don't want. Apple
Yep.
put the tools in place. You just have to know how to use them.
Yeah.
That's a really good example. All right.
So yeah, that was all I had. I know, like you said, we're running long, but I think it was a good conversation, and let's keep the conversation going, guys. Jump in the comments and let us know. Send us messages, send us emails. Let us know how you're handling or how you're preparing your family and your kids for this new AI, uh, uh, this AI future that we're
Yeah.
staring at.
And how do you deal with this philosophical stuff? Because AI will not be the last time we have to have this conversation. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us here at Gadgets for Families. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe, follow, all of that kind of stuff. Share this with others. And we look forward to talking to you either in the comments or next week. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. See you there.